Yeah. Been from them in the building. Sesame in the building. Pour out the bubbles, we holding our liquor down. If it's a problem, I go to the bar and I shut it down. Get out my section, don't bother with lames. I'm watching these bunnies bounce. Shorty a 10, a rubber band, come on for the 100 pound. All of the talk, but don't run them mouth. I'm trying to be out. All I really wanna know, when we leaving, all I really need to know is when we leaving. All I really wanna know, when we leaving. All I really need to know is when we leaving.
Careful with your pretty eyes and run with me, you're young. 'Cause you and I are a secret. Feel my drift against your skin. 'Cause honestly, let's hold our breath, this is so real. Just you and me, let's escape, girl, tonight. Careful with your pretty eyes and run with me, you're young. 'Cause you and I are a secret. Feel my drift against your skin. 'Cause honestly, let's hold our breath, this is so real. Just you and me, let's escape, girl, tonight.
Welcome everybody to the first ever Battle for Scotland League of Legends final. My name is Trajan. I'm joined by Dusk here this evening. We will be your casters today for Glasgow Caledonian University versus University of Edinburgh.
If it isn't obvious just from my face and how much I'm cheesing and not able to stop it, I'm so excited to be here. I'm so excited that this finally came together. We are going to be crowning a Scottish champion today in League of Legends and all of the rest of this week.
Yeah, absolutely. We just cannot be more excited for what we've seen from all of the teams, all of the players, and from Charge putting this all together. Scotland on the up and up once again. We stay winning north of the border, guys. It's always been true, and now it's even more so. For Battle for Scotland finals, it is going to be a massive week of games. There's plenty more action. We are just the first in a long line of success here. So, how do we get here? Okay, let's talk about this. The first season, an online season to test it out, to see if everyone was interested, and it kind of feels like they were. So Dusk, why don't you talk to us a little bit more about how this first season played out?
Well, let's get this bracket going and get a real image of just how we had. So before we even got here, way back, if you cast your minds back to October of 2023 is when the regular season of Battle for Scotland started. All the teams faced each other once to determine seeding for this bracket. The two teams that we got here tonight, University of Edinburgh finished first seed, Glasgow Caledonian University finished third. Despite where they finished, Glasgow Caledonian upset University of Dundee and University of Edinburgh in winners finals to get their spot here in the Grands. University of Edinburgh then got sent down to the losers finals versus Dundee, where they managed to just close that out to get their spot back here. So all to play for. It's been a really long season for both of these teams. They played so many best of threes to get here, and there's such a beautiful storyline already built up. Edinburgh have been sent down to the losers bracket by none other than Glasgow Caledonian, and they have their opportunity for redemption here today in this best of 5 series.
Absolutely. The first team to hand Edinburgh even a single game loss, let alone a series loss, was GCU, and now Edinburgh are back for revenge here. Caledonia maybe just took a little bit more time to settle in. This is a roster with some new pieces, not quite as much synergy there, whereas Edinburgh have got some synergy built up with these 5 players, and they were certainly able to flex that through those earlier stages and have maintained a very, very scary opponent back up into the grand final, as you say. So, did we expect, first, before we talk into these teams a little bit more, did we expect anyone else through this bracket to maybe get a little further? Do you expect to see anyone else making it up to this final? Did we have any lost upsets, any powerhouses that didn't quite make the run?
Well, seeing as you've brought them up,
yeah.
I couldn't. I'd be mistaken to not talk about the absolute powerhouse that was the University of Dundee. Unfortunately, my team, my gang, they didn't make it here. I would have loved to be casting for them, but unfortunately, the wonderful players on the University of Edinburgh managed to make it up to the finals. I'm of course joking. It's a fantastic team to get here, and honestly, regardless of where my alliances lie, we've got a fantastic finals here ahead of us, because these two teams could not be more night and day and light and dark in the way that they play. I think it's such an interesting contrast between the two of them that we've got some great games laid out ahead of us.
Yeah, we really do. The strengths are in different places. The styles are very different from both of these teams, and that is what we like to see over a best of 5, right? Give both of these teams a chance to try and adapt over the course of a series, find those new solutions as more problems arise through the whole 5-game spree. Now, let's take a look at the rosters. Let's see who is actually playing, who is fighting for this first BFS League of Legends Championship. On the GCU side, we have Chris G, or Crudge, League Professor, otherwise known as Heavenix, Crawford, Lewis, and CWL in the support side. And for Edinburgh, 2x68, Arkanug, Feisman, Redpin, and Dr. Deathcap. So, looking at these rosters first, let's start with GCU. And Dusk, is there any player specifically that stands out? Any one that you think is that we need to be really paying attention to here today?
The name of the game here for GCU, and it was how they won the original set that they played versus Edinburgh in winners finals, is Heavenix. It's League Professor. His assassin carry performances in the jungle have been so strong in taking them through, but much as that might sound like a sort of, hyper carry 1v9 sort of performance putting it through, that's absolutely not the case. The way the GCU team plays around and supports him in order to enable this kind of performance is incredible. So absolutely keep your eyes on the jungle matchup for them.
Yeah, for sure. You know, you can sit back and watch your Rengar go in and die 1v5 every time and go, nothing we could do. But if you're there to support them with an Orianna Ball or a Nautilus Hook to follow up or a Tom to get him out of danger, GCU is there ready and waiting with the solution to let League Professor go wild in these games. And that is what Heavenix has very much been doing. Just for anyone who doesn't know, this is an ex-pro League of Legends player in the old Singapore region back in 2017, 2018. Peak result was second in that league. That is now part of the PCS, where teams like PSG Talon, that people will know and have seen on the world stage, have come from. So this is a guy with a professional pedigree and is now a regular coach through the kind of Division 1, 2, 3 around the ERL level. So a great mind for the game and hands to back it up too.
And I mean, casting our minds over to the UOE team as well, they do have some fantastic players behind them. Mainly Feisman in the mid lane has been playing incredibly across this whole season, been really directing their team in terms of angles. We hear that they're very vocal when it comes not just in game, also in draft and putting these together. And I mean, support Dr. Deathcap. We've seen he's got some comp experience as well under his belt, and with 20k in winnings. Is that for charity? That's men.
Yes, he has been put up some big numbers for those who need it, for sure. A very selfless champion is Dr. Deathcap, competing in the Corporate Esports Association. But I very much agree with what you said about Feisman as well. This guy feels like the pivotal member of UOE. I've played against the man in Friendly Customs, and I've been soundly whopped by the guy. He's really very, very good, both in the lane and out of it, and has an array of mages that you can see in this mid lane. A lot of aggression to come out of there as well to punish any mistakes from the enemy team. So all we have to see is if he's enabled to do that, right? Because that is, I think, the key, is when you have an important jungle matchup. We know Heavenix is super aggressive. We need to see what Arcanug could do on the other side of that, and that bleeds into the lanes. We can't just be letting Chris G go wild on the Akali every single game because the ganks are coming in. Feisman as well on the way. He's got to be scared of the ganks coming in. So I really want to see how this jungle matchup pans out, and importantly, where they're focusing their time, which lane they actually go to be in their minds the pivotal element to get themselves the win.
I mean, fundamentally, the name of the game here for UAE is adaptation, because they've come in from the loser side because they lost to GCU in the winner side. So they need to have looked at their games, which I'm sure they have, take notes, go through, why are we losing to Heavenix? Why are we losing to GCU? Where are our weaknesses, and how can we adapt our either playstyle? How can we change our champ select to draft around it more? What are we going to do to make sure that the loss that we had against GCU last time is a win this time? And we're going to get into champ select, I believe, very soon and see that now.
Yeah, absolutely. We need to see what the priority is going to be. I think for me personally, I'm going to be looking towards that bot lane. And for GCU specifically, there are a lot of power picks that they can go for. The Rengar for Heavenix in the jungle, the Draven for Lewis down bot lane, and the Akali for Christian top. So let's see if UOE is willing to let any of them go, or if there are any other priorities they can find. And then specifically the Senna combination with some sort of tank in the bot lane has proven very high priority for both of these bot lanes through the tournament.
Yeah, that's kind of the picks that we're expecting to see here. It just seems like for both of these teams, like you mentioned, lots of high priority bans that when the dust settles, the Senna and the tanks are the best options that are there for sort of early picks, which is why we are seeing them. We saw 3 games of Senna for Lewis in the previous series between these two teams. So you'd absolutely expect it to come out here. In terms of bans that we're seeing thus far, GCU just banning out power picks. The Talia and the Hui. Feisman is fantastic at these, and the Xin Zhao is a comfort pick for Arcanug.
Yeah, 100%. I think that I'm not surprised to see the bans away from Feisman, and the Hui as well is just such a strong scaling pick right here. Yes, it can be vulnerable, but the carry potential in this champion is massive, and the Talia specifically has been taken away from this guy most of the time with the playmaking options. UOE, they are doing a bit of jungle focus with the Bel'Veth and the Rengar we expected, plus the Draven. This leaves the Senna as a potential first pick. Let's see if GCU are willing to just lock that and find the answer later, or if they want to try and pick some power up somewhere else.
Yeah, and I mean, the Hover coming in here, clear indication. The Nautilus is a good first pick currently. You know, you're getting the lockdown. You're getting exactly what you want in the bot lane. You're getting the tank, and it does still speak to the Senna. It kind of sends a message to UAE saying, look, if you're not picking it, we're picking it. It's probably coming to us, and then we'll draft elsewhere. In terms of what we do have left over, like I said earlier, as the dust settles from these bans, the Rengar is gone, but the Kayn, another signature pick of League Professor, is still on the table, so they could be looking to pick that up in combination, and so we see the answer coming through to be the Thresh against Nautilus.
It seems like this is going to be a counter strategy from almost both sides, because the Nautilus is a very sort of bog standard pick down there. It's reliable and useful into most things, and the Thresh is the answer, so it's a good answer into Nautilus, but doesn't really speak to the rest of the composition. The Jinx as well is a late game scaler, can also be strong in the lane. So UOE and GCU keeping the cards close to the chest. Will this be the setter here? I think it could be, but the range of the Jinx and the Thresh from the threats from the Thresh could be a little dangerous for them. We'll see if that's dangerous enough to dissuade them from this pick, as it looks like they might be looking for the mid lane instead. They're going to get Crawford. Again, a very reliable, the cards close to the chest on either side. We don't really know what either team is trying to aim for with a totality of their comp so far.
Yeah, I mean, this is exactly what we were expecting to see here from both these teams. The Nautilus locked in, highlights or hints maybe at the center. We see Thresh Jinx, so offering the handshake across the table. However, as much as I don't like talking about hovers, yep, the Xayah does come through, a really interesting secondary option. Like you mentioned, a bit more range, which, because, you know, Senna, while she will get range over the course of the game, can struggle, especially early into Jinx and Thresh. So I do really like this pick here. I think Xayah is a very underrated champion right now.
Oh, for sure.
And you can already see the sort of composition coming together for GCU. And as you mentioned there as well, they are keeping their cards close to their chest. They are not wanting to let any picks away early. As we see the Akali get locked in, I'm just not going to talk. That's incredible.
So I was thinking, like, okay, we're going into the second round of the bans. Now, do we keep banning Heavenix, or do we still go for some other power picks like the Christie Akali? Instead, they will deny it. And Tumai68 up in that top lane is very proficient on the duelists as well, the Renekton's of this world in top lane. So it could easily go mid or top in my mind, and it does deny it from Chris G. Now we see the Kayn removed, so I think we have seen the strategy at work for UOE and the adaptation at play. This Kayn was pivotal in the winners finals, and it will not be an option here in game 1.
Yeah, I really like the Akali pick here from UE, because not only does it take a comfort pick away from Chris G, it also means that with that flex, it's going to make these picks here, especially if they do end up picking jungle on R4, that's going to leave so many questions still unanswered for GCU, meaning they're going to have to be the ones to make the proactive moves and make unknown choices.
Yeah, it seems like for GCU, they did take away the best picks for FaZeman here to try and knock down this key player, but now they are also focusing on the jungle with the Xin Zhao and the Vi, trying to take away the strongest picks from Arcanug to help Heavenix get as much advantage as possible, and the last one is the K'Sante. So again, we're not convinced exactly where the Akali is going from the GCU side. Tumai is a very strong K'Sante player and can neutralize Chris G on this pick, or at least he would if it wasn't banned. So let's see what the priority is for UOE and what their final counter pick is going to be. I would assume they take jungle here and just leave a top or mid for the last fifth.
Yeah, I think blinding jungle is absolutely the right play here. It keeps that Akali flex open. We see the Poppy hover, really good pick in just preventing them from necessarily taking any other duelists or any other things that can maybe be dashing around and contesting what they've picked. And yet that is going to be the Poppy. And again, honestly, whilst it's slightly less unlikely that Poppy could go top, Tumai does have a small handful of games on it. So
yeah,
theoretically a 3-way flex. I think it's very likely that Poppy's going jungle. And yeah, so now the ball is in GCU's court. They need to pick both their top and their jungle. And the Alawi windmill slam. That's not on the notes. Callum, what do we do?
We're wailing today, I'm afraid. We will simply stand back and watch the wailing be attempted by Chris G here. This is a bold pick by him. It can be vulnerable. It's not mobile, but it's very strong on its own. It's very strong isolated. This does maybe give us an idea about where Heavenix is going to be spending his time. The answer is probably not top lane, but we'll see as the game progresses. So Chris G making a statement up there that he is not to be trifled with, as the Graves the last lock-in. So it's still a strong AD threat, but it's not one that can necessarily create plays itself in the way that a Rengar and a Kayn can.
Yeah, I mean, what we're seeing here is just sort of an answer to sort of the Akali and the Poppy, the champions that are wanting to be clicking on you, going in you, forcing fights. And now you've got two champions that are very strong at just being able to stand, hold their ground for the time that it takes, where you burn your spells and then they're still going at the end of it, still pumping out damage. And the Fiora answer. Ladies and gentlemen, we have got a game on our hands.
Dude, I love the confidence from both of these sides, especially the top lane, the Alawi blind on one side, into the Fiora now for Tumai. So trying to outskill that matchup. And this is what we saw in the last series from Tumai and Chris G. They were going at it, hell for leather the whole time. And this matchup could swing very heavy to either side, depending on the champion, depending on the day, depending on the weather on the Rift that day, you know? This could be a very volatile top lane, as it has been in the past. And I love that, because we just don't know how that side of the map's going to play out.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those matchups where we could see this start to snowball from the first three waves. This could get
Yes.
crazy. And this is what I really love about best of five. As a caster, you come
Uh-huh.
up to a best of five, and it's a daunting task. We could have 5 games in front of us. We could be here for 5 hours. It could be a slobber knocker. But this is what makes it all worth it. Because in these
Yeah.
game ones, these game twos, when if teams are up a game or they're wanting to experiment, you'll see big, bold statement plays. And that's exactly what this is. They're going to be going at it in the top lane. We're going to have an exciting matchup and we're going to have a brilliant game one.
Absolutely, we are. I really love the way specifically UOE approached this draft because we needed to see adaptability from them from the winners finals to now. And yes, they locked in their bot lane very early. They played for red side, they played for the counters, and they kept it all in the dark until the final pick. They got the Akali and the Poppy, which they could be swapping until the last moment, and then they lock in the Fiora once they found out what the matchup they want is. So I love the way they approach this one. I think mid and top are their best chances to try and force and find an advantage. They have an Akali to do it mid, they have a Fiora to do it top lane. So GCU need to be on their toes, especially on that top side of the map. The bot lane's pretty stable, it has been in the past, and the Xayah is fairly hard to punish. So I think we're really going to have to look into mid and top throughout this early game.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's not to say that it's boring in any way, but you know, we've got a handshake, like we said in the bot lane. When you're looking at a Xayah Jinx as opposed to some of these more aggressive ADCs that we've been seeing in our levels of play, whether it be the Lucian or the Draven that we've seen banned, we've got a bit of a handshake down here. We will see some action. There is tanks here. There is engage. We can see picks, but when you have the Alawi Fiora matchup in top lane, it indicates a direction. It says,
Yeah.
you're probably going to be coming here for the first few
Yeah.
levels. The first few minutes, this game is going to be focused on us, whether you like it or not. And then I think it really becomes the question of how well these teams play the late game, because neither of these comps are brain off 5v5. We win the fights with good positioning. These team comps are both complex beasts, which they're going to have to really focus on to make sure that they're playing them correctly.
Yeah, I thought we were going towards the brain off 5v5 for GCU after 1-2-3. Great front to back there, but then we have the Graves, which is, once again, not a simple champion to pilot in a team fight. You have to be getting the maximum value out of it. And then the Alawi, which, are you splitting? Are you in the fight? Are you standing your ground? Are you trying to flank? There's a lot of ways to approach the Alawi, and you can completely flub the Alawi engage if you're not in the right spot. So GCU made it a lot harder for themselves, but they do have, like, I assume they've got some sort of plan, some scheme that is in the motion here for GCU. And this is off the back of Heavenix, who does lead the drafting. The way that I have been informed by Crawford, their mid laner, as to how they do this is Crawford will collect data and review other games and review drafts from UOE and their opponents, send it all to Heavenix, and just kind of feed all the data into the machine, and then they will receive a draft strategy out the other side. So we'll see what Heavenix has got cooking. He clearly has been cooking, and I would put faith, at least, you know, the benefit of the doubt for sure behind him until we can see otherwise.
I was going to say that the evidence is mounting that Heavenix is just a League of Legends AI that is just taking in data, processing it, and improving every single day. It is incredible. But yeah, I mean, it's really interesting to see actually how these sort of picks and how the teams have changed how they've played over the course of the season, because GCU ended up losing their match in the regular season because they basically played a comp that wasn't really them. They didn't have this assassin in the jungle, and now they've came into their own. They've got Heavenix behind them on the draft strategy, and they seem really, really comfortable with this sort of type of draft. The one that we've got in front of us, where we got Heavenix on something that, while you did mention there, it may be hard. Clearly, it's something that he's comfortable on. It would not get picked otherwise. We've got Alawi, which for ChrisG is, it's Wayland season. This is to say this is comfort is an understatement. So they've got something that is hard to play, but if any of the teams in this league that I trust to play something that's hard to play, it's GCU.
Yeah, for sure. You know, if I had to design a jungle AI, I'd probably make it play Graves, and it would have 300 CS by 20 minutes, and then it would one-shot all the enemy teams with like a 4-item stack on Graves at that point. That seems like the AI way to win the jungle in my head. So yeah, I think that's only more evidence, sadly, going into the allegations for Heavenix there. So we'll have to see if some mistakes come out on the Rift to prove that he's human. But for UOE now, in the way that they're approaching this, because you know that GCU, they've got a great team fight possibility here, not the easiest champions to execute within that framework, and they do have some split push threat with the Alawi, maybe even the Graves if he just decides to do that instead. But I think Xayah, Orianna, Nautilus, there's a massive core for a big objective team fight with the Alawi there too. For UOE, They have the Fiora, which is really designed more for the split push, but once again, can fight if they want, and the Akali. So there could be a bit of 1-3-1ing potentially happening for UOE, and they could just dodge the objective issue altogether, which might ruin the Alawi's day somewhat.
Yeah, I mean, both these teams. I think what it'll all come down to, if I'm trying to use my orb to gaze into the future, is I can absolutely see this game 40-minute slobber knocker back and forth, and it all comes down to one well-timed TP from the split pushers. One well timed.
Yeah.
Because in games like this, especially in compositions that are designed like this, when it is 1-3-1, it depends. When do you pull the trigger? What time do you choose to call in? It's okay. This is the time that you need to either go to the side, or this is the time that you need to come to the fight. And when games are so razor thin as to who's going to win it could go absolutely either way. That's what I love to see.
Yeah, when the pressure is super high and thinking, if I TP to this fight, do we lose the game or do we win the game, whether I press this button or not? And that can really start to strain the decision-making faculties as we are onto the Rift here for game number 1 of the series. Dr. Deathcap opens it up with a death sentence over the wall. It's just a little bit of poke, but a statement has been sent. The bot river belongs to Edinburgh.
An early statement made, and hopefully they'll get a little bit more vision into the bot side jungle. We did see there in the top side, there was some early contests, so we do have a little bit of deep vision here for the side of GCU. Crudge getting in and setting up the tentacles early as expected. So the question here becomes, do we see exactly what we're expecting? And it looks like that's going to be both junglers starting bot side, pathing top side. Who's surprised? Not us.
Yeah, so we'll see where the wave is going to be sitting for Christian Tumai up there when those junglers arrive ready to go. Now, for League Professor, he's got the Graves. It's not necessarily as easy to hard pressure the Poppy in the 1v1, right? Poppy, very strong in these early stages. He doesn't have the Rengar or the Kayn to necessarily bully this pick as much. I may stand corrected, but I feel like this maybe has pushed League Professor off a champion where he can be as oppressive early in the game.
Yeah, Graves is much more of a pick where you start seeing the spikes around, 1-2 items, depending on what champions it is that you're playing into. I can see him going more for sort of a cover angle here in the early ganks as opposed to trying to be proactive, just to probably a full clear into top and then play for the counter gank or just play to defend basically in the matchup. Whereas, yeah, you're absolutely right. The Poppy will look for those early ganks. I mean, we even saw for a while it was meta for sort of 3 camp clears on Poppy into an early gank somewhere on the map just because of how much pressure her push and her slow can have in these early ganks.
Yeah, we see them now heading onto this top side. A lot of trading in the mid lane as well. Christian and Tumai are playing quite reserved up there. I think no one wants to overtrade, perhaps with the knowledge that junglers could be on the way. But Crawford and FaZeman, no such. They didn't get the memo there. They're just going at it in that mid stage. Crawford, though, with the biscuits does mean he can trade aggressively and tough himself up. Once the Akali gets ult, though, that's when I'm going to be the alarm bells are going to be going. And we'll need to see if Crawford is able to step back or if the ganks will start to come through. And now Alawi trading onto the Fiora as the junglers head onto those red buffs for the last few minutes.
Yeah, we see here Poppy slightly ahead on the clear. I don't think it's necessarily going to result in anything. The wave looks in a fairly neutral position. So I don't think we're going to be seeing any of this action. It will be incredibly funny if we talk a big game about how crazy this matchup is, and then we see passive play from both of them. Yeah, because nobody wants to be the one to make the first move and mess it up in such a high pressure scenario. I don't think that's going to happen. I think we are going to see some aggressive plays. I think it's just, I mean, fundamentally, we are at the level here, whilst we're not necessarily, top level Division 1, whatever it may be, we are still at the level where the players here really do know what the movement of the wave, where your opponent junglers likely are playing around timers. We're not in the low depths of ELO where players aren't going to know what's happening. So they aren't going to necessarily be just throwing stuff at the wall and seeing if it sticks, but I still think we will see some action up here in the top lane as my words are taken out my mouth.
Yeah, the death sentence sticks onto CWL. There are Arcanog's there to follow it up. Bounces the Nocturne, and FaZeman's going to be the first to rotate through from the mid lane, but it's first blood for League Professor onto the Thresh. Down behind the tower. Lewis now under fire as Crawford's rotated over. Can the Graves get out of danger here as the Nautilus is there, but FaZeman's in with the Shuriken. A counter punch from Lewis, and it's a double in for the Jinx. This fight is going back and forth. Both the AD carries fall at the same time, and it's one left apiece, but Crawford, he's got a real big pool of HP to play with. And Arcanog, just the double buffs in a dream, flashes away, but Crawford will hold his own. 3 for 3 in the bot lane, an absolute melee to start us off.
Flashes burnt players down. We talked so long about the action in the top lane, but it happened in the bot. It was just a comedy of timing there with people walking around vision they didn't know was there. We saw the fight come out. It broke out. It looked like it was in the favor of GCU quite strongly to begin with as they picked up the first blood, and it looked like they were getting their way out. But a beautiful click back from the Akali, managing to kill that Graves, but then gets themselves traded. It was a crazy fight. GCU coming out slightly on top just because of that first blood, but it really is a difference of, less than 100 gold.
Yeah, really, the only significant difference here is just the wave that Lewis is going to pick up here. That's the real advantage going down into this bot side. We'll see if they can use it as they approach those ultimate levels. And yeah, now the only thing that hasn't hit the kill scoreboard right now is the top lane. They are still farming away. ChrisG has at least managed to get himself a CS lead of his own, but they are, I imagine, just watching the minimaps going, what on earth is going on down there?
Watching from afar, the island back as a... Honestly, we should have known going in. This is how it was always going to be. The island will forever be the island. We may see, however, a fight here around these grubs early as Graves is on this side of the jungle. So if League Professor chooses to scout this, the Bloom Cone misses, but he is going to walk in and spot this. So we might see a little scuffle here.
Comes in and gets one apiece right now, and Arcanug on his own. League Professor is level 6. The laner's not roaming right now. ChrisG has Prio in top lane, but not much mana to work with. Phasman in the mid lane. Level 6 in the Akali with no ult. Can rotate first. The Thresh up there too. Lovely stun by Poppy into the wall. Does it give an angle for the Akali to get in there as the Graves picks up the second grub? And they'll just step away, but Crawford in with the ultimate, the collateral damage layered over the top. The Lantern left unclicked, and it's grubs and the kill for GCU.
Amazing shockwave there by Crawford. Just finds the opportunity, finds the right timing on moving there, gets his wave cleared, and gets the kill. Very importantly, yeah, it looked pretty hard there for GCU, especially with Thresh moving up and Akali having the move in mid lane. But because ChrisG had that pressure down, he was able to exert it, and Alawi really does just control so much space early on in these fights.
Dealing with the pressure very well in the bot side. A lot of CS advantage in the top and bot side for GCU. Phasman holding his own in the mid lane though. CWL, the Hex Flash over the wall. The space will be offered by Repu, and does have the flash as well for safety. And overall, it's a small lead accruing for the side of GCU. But most of it, I think the main difference is in this jungle, right? This is what we expected, but we need to see how Heavenix can use it on this Graves if he's gonna be the difference maker in fights that we need him to be when he's got so much of the resource.
Yeah, I mean, this is always the way these games play out. We say there's going to be a bunch of action in the top side, all the actions in the bot lane. We say that the Graves might struggle to necessarily get an advantage early and will likely try and farm up until he's 1-2 items, and he's got 3 kills at 7 minutes. This is just
yeah.
This is the reality of this situation in these games. We've got to deal with it. So I think now the larger question for these players becomes what the situation is around Dragon, because while GCU do have a slight gold lead, I don't think it's manifested into any significant item differential at this point. The Grubs did end up going over 2-1 to GCU, which I think is going to be quite important as we get to the second Grub fight when that comes around. But my question more is, where are these two players playing around Dragon? Oh,
gets the flash away from Tumai, and he's got the ghost coming in, shepherds him away from the tower, and ChrisG with the solo kill in top lane. Didn't leave our prediction completely off the wall as in the mid lane, Heavenix finds one onto Phasman, backed up by Crawford as well. I guess here the Graves just continues to keep the pace high. 3-1-1 right now, and they're pushing into this tower.
Yeah, this is exactly what we expected, what we needed from Heavenix. If GCU wanted to find an advantage, they need to take their champion and they need to use it to exert pressure all across the map. And they're doing exactly that, despite being the weaker early game champion. As we see more scuffles here down in the bot lane.
The exhaust forces the Nautilus up, but a massive pullback on the E. Catches Dr. Deathcap, and Lewis wants a little bit more. Redpin is going to have to force the flash, but the hook catches him under the tower. It's a double for the Xayah. One is traded back, but they'll take that every day of the week as the Hex Tech is theirs as well.
Scuffles all across the map, and it's all coming up GCU right now. We've seen this gold deficit explode here. The difference now looking just under 3k, and the Dragon going down for them as well during that play. So it's a kill in top, a kill in mid, 2 kills in bot, and a Dragon. Massive for them. As we take a look back at this, of course, we see here in the mid lane, Crawford does manage to get damage out early, and yet the Shroud is not going to save you from this. The Shockwave pulls them back, and that's beautiful gank there from them. I mean, GCU are just playing the map here and just their characters so well.
Evanix in absolutely the right spot every time he needs to be there. FaZeman maybe not expecting it, drops the cooldowns, and then suddenly there's a Graves coming out of the woodwork. It goes from bad to worse. So we need to see more from this Akali before too long, or the game's going to snowball out of workable region for them. Once they get that first item, it's as you said before, I think it is still going to be heavily execution based for the next few minutes. Once they have ults and items to play with, a dodge shockwave could be everything. But FaZeman again caught in the 1v2 in mid lane, trying to get aggressive, trying to find an advantage, but only ends up getting forced out.
Yeah, it has to burn everything, the ultimate, the flash. That's really rough for them there. However, we're seeing the bot woken up, but it doesn't look like Crawford's getting caught by it.
She is going to be out of there, steps away from the zap as well, and Deathcap holds the flash for there. We did see a potential counter punch, but not in time, as now the Grubs are back up again, and with so much control across the map, we've got to imagine this is going to be another set for GCU, but Arcanog maybe wants to push, and the rest of UOE are coming around the corner. Chris G can't find a good angle to set up for the ult, and GCU are the ones peeling back.
Yeah, really beautifully executed there by UAE, even though your mid laner's down in terms of resources in the mid lane, knowing that they have the numbers, they have the pressure to push this up. And now, because they played that, they're 3-3 at Grubs. They're not seeing any deficit there. Despite being down a bit in gold, that was really well executed by UAE there to keep them in this game.
Yeah, nice calmly done by them. No excessive flashes being burnt, no itchy trigger fingers, as we do get plates onto Lewis though. 3-1 and 2 on the Xayah, already has the Kraken as FaZeman TP's in bot side. Doesn't have the flash, doesn't have the ult, not too much threat there, but maybe they're just early rotating him down, as the mid lane has not been the most favorable for him. Lewis is going to find himself in the 1v1. He's got the summoners and maybe just drops the ult for wave clear, I suppose. I'm agreeing with FaZeman there on the usage, but perhaps he knows he just needs to get the back off. As League Professors round the corner, Akali thought they were safe, thought it was fine, distracted perhaps by the Xayah ultimate, and Heavenix is there to capitalize.
Yeah, the emote came out too soon. A little bit cocky there from FaZeman. Walks up to a Graves with a shotgun pointed directly to their face as GCU find another kill to get them on the board. And now this really brings into question whether or not they are able to put this Akali safely on the sideline, especially given that thus far it seems like the fights haven't exactly, well, we'll ignore the Xayah ultimate. That was a 10. But the fights haven't necessarily been going in their way, especially when GCU have time to be moving their players around. It really is like Heavenix is where he needs to be at the right times every single time.
GCU happy to just kind of play safe and just wait for Heavenix to arrive before the play materializes, very much in keeping with the style they have developed over the course of Battle for Scotland. As Arcanog and FaZeman are going to take an aggressive position here. If they can get onto the Graves, there's a shutdown ready to be collected. Graves right now, somewhat isolated, but CWL and Lewis can fight back. In goes the early exhaust, but they don't get the damage onto him. Arcanog on the flank, straight onto the Graves. They need to get this kill. They need to get the shutdown, but it's not quite there. Both AD carriers are traded. Finally, Poppy gets the damage down, and Deathcap will be caught in the pit. But I think Crawford has put himself in harm's way to get this one. FaZeman's got two. It's set up for a third from the Poppy, and they desperately needed this from Edinburgh. Akali is right back into the game.
Yeah, Edinburgh clean up that fight, really well played, layering their CC beautifully on the important targets.
That's just brutal for To My Right here. Does have the flash, doesn't get him away in time. Crudge is there with a final W. And it's going from bad to worse in the top side. The rest of the map is going back and forth, but Chris G, at least on the Alawi, is having a great time.
And I mean, this is really going to affect the game state that as we sort of get into the mid game here. We are going to see the power of Chris G in the top lane. Can they actually send anyone who can safely answer it? As we get back into the replay of this fight. And I mean, this is really interesting how this ended up playing out. She mentioned the exhaust goes down early, the flash out, but then Poppy here brings it in, ultimate onto 2, and Akali is just able to layer her damage. We do see a flash there in order to finish off the Graves. Now, Crawford, unfortunately, on the other side of the map, just trying to finish off Dr. Deathcap, and by the time he does, he is surrounded. Really, really well played by UAE there to take the fights, even when they're down on slight itemization. Good positioning and good priority as we get straight back into a fight.
Dragon secured by the Graves, and Poppy as well on the wrong side of town. It's going to be the kill and the objective. GCU right back to the winning ways. as they haven't managed to buy on Akali yet. You can see still waiting on that first item after getting those 3 kills, is probably going to secure it once they get a chance to take it back, once they have a free second to go and shop. But Crawford keeping that pressure on. That gold injection into the mid lane for UOA needs to be the godsend. Now he's going to be at the point where he can assassinate Crawford. He can assassinate Lewis when the ult is down. And League Professor too. He's got the Merc Treads, yes, but it's all lethality besides that.
Yeah, I would really like to see actually how the positioning for that dragon fight played out and how they actually ended up getting it so readily secured. What it looked like was a lot of posturing from both teams, because obviously we saw a large number of their members down there, but it looks like perhaps Poppy just went in for a smite and wasn't quite able to claim it back. We are still actually in I want to say a relatively even game state, because even though there is a sort of 3k advantage here for GCU, and that is by no means like insignificant, that is absolutely a notable gold lead. As we mentioned in draft, both of these comps require very good execution to play, so that 3k gold lead isn't going to translate as well as we see more engage in action on the bot lane.
Fireworks going down as Dr. Deathcat falls. Lewis stepping forward to capitalize on the Los's ultimate. Jinx is there, but it's a double for the Xayah again. Lewis and CWL unflappable in the bot side. They don't get the jungle attention, but they can still find the advantage.
And it does not look like they need it. This is what their second set of 2-on-2 kills. This is really where the advantage is for GCU. I was just talking there about how the execution of these comps is going to be a lot more important as we get into the late game. But as we have seen from GCU, they are capable of executing the 2v2 fights, the 1v1 in the top lane from Chris G. So if they can carry that on into the mid game, and most importantly, if they can translate that into not just good micro, but good macro, then we should see them maybe run away with this lead.
Yeah, for sure. For UOE, they have so many ways to play with the pick potential. And Alawi is an inherently kiteable champion just by the way it plays. There is a skill expression available there as a hook lands onto Nautilus, though. I don't think they have the damage to maybe get this kill sorted out. It's just a bit of poke. It's just a bit of pressure as Jinx is pushing down in this mid side as well. The gold league definitely not in the favor of Edinburgh, but they've got the tools to make the comeback. It's all about finding the openings, and you can see that's clearly what they're looking for right now in the bot side jungle.
Yeah, I mean, this is so aggressive. They're right in the midst of enemy territory. We can see a fight breaking out here in any second. They're so far forward. A Nautilus hook here could start anything.
Well, on the front line there, but steps away. They've at least forced the side of Edinburgh back out. I like the way GCU approached that. They don't have a lot of inherent tankiness there, so they just slap the Nautilus on the front, push him forward into the brushes to face check them, and they do manage to clear the threat. So well executed by GCU, taking some time out of their day to make sure their side of the map is safe, and they will simply return to normal lanes. Now, FaZeman on the Akali in the side lane, looking a lot more deadly. They might have a gank planned onto Crawford as he tries to thin out the wave. In goes the Akali, doesn't land the Shuriken, and a flash away dodges the Poppy stun. But FaZeman is still in. He's past the tower, knocked up by Nautilus. There's a lantern to get him to safety, and he will take it. I think Edinburgh, we need to call this one done and just try and get out. But Poppy, maybe not so lucky. Now he's on the wrong side of town with 3 members chasing him down, and no one has any tools left for Edinburgh. Heavenix hunting down the invaders. Another lantern, though, will get Edinburgh out. I'm going to be honest, I don't know how they'll survive that.
Well, let's go back to the start, because my God, was that was a whole series. That was a whole symphony of things that happened there. So we missed the Akali E on the tower, an incredible flash by Crawford to dodge the pin into the wall, kept him alive under tower. Very well played by him. Then Arcanug stuck around arguably far too long there, far longer than he should have on the bot side. They get chased out by the Graves, flash burnt for the Akali, Poppy just making it out with a fantastic lantern at the end. It was a misexecution on the dive, but honestly, after everything that happened there, UOE should be very happy only to have burnt a flash.
Yeah, could have gone much, much worse for them. Dr. Deathcat putting a shift in on the Thresh to get his players out of trouble right now. And we could see in that top lane play just before we get into the replay. Let's take a look at this in detail before.
Yeah, so what we're going to see here, as I mentioned, was the sort of the ultimate onto Crawford. The E misses, which is so much of Akali's damage. A really well-timed flash there to get him out. And the ultimate going straight down onto him, but ultimately doesn't land onto anything. As we see here in the live view, the mid lane pushing in. And with that pressure, they're going to use this to go down to Drake. This will be soul point for them if they do manage to get it. So a rough pick as we get the fight going.
FaZeman's got the flank onto Lewis, doesn't get the shuriken, but there's the ultimate down. Can they get the damage out? That's the Blade Storm done. Can anyone find more? Nautilus the first to die. FaZeman knocked up. Heavenix trying to shotgun them down with a bit collateral damage as well. Thrasher onto Crawford, but now Chris G is in. Tumai as well. Lovely Poppy ultimate to remove the Alawi from the equation, but it's really just to allow Edinburgh to escape back into the jungle. This will be Drake number 3 for GCU, but I'll be honest, these fights are getting closer and closer.
Yeah, they do lose 2 for 1 there in that fight. Not ideal, but you're absolutely right. These fights are going down to the wire. One misexecution or one misstep from Glasgow could spell their own demise. But thus far in their game, to their credit, they have been playing almost all these fights incredibly.
Absolutely have. Heavenix getting so much damage down with this Graves. Let's take a replay of it and see where they managed to execute.
So we see here the early pressure down onto Poppy. FaZeman comes back through, burns Lewis's ultimate, and the damage coming back there locks down FaZeman. But the ultimate managing to get out, the damage comes across, and the shotgun deals massive damage. We're about to see the biggest Poppy hammer perhaps we may see in this series to get Alawi out there. Really does turn the fight, but when I say it turns the fight, I don't mean it wins them. It just allows them to get out, because I think if that Alawi was there and was laying down damage, I don't think UAE makes that out alive.
They'd probably get flattened if the Alawi is allowed to press a couple more buttons, as Tumai holding onto this top lane tower, but maybe realize they need to get out of dodge right here. There's an Orianna ultimate to get away from. They do have the parry, they do have the flash, and they escape through it. But now on the bot side, it's Thresh caught out by the entire team of the Caledonian University. Lewis goes on the killing spree. They'll push them back away from this top lane tower, as at least FaZeman can pick up a tower and a bounty on the bot side. But GCU might have designs on the Baron.
Yeah, this is a really early Baron from them. With all the buffs that came in the preseason, it's made this incredibly hard to take. But with how strong they are right now, they are looking to force it down. Arcanug does appear to be hovering about. The Jig Shocker doesn't get it, and the Baron is going to go down for GCU as a shockwave lands onto Arcanug.
He has to pull himself back in. There's so much damage to follow it up, and Chris G claims the credit. On the bot side, FaZeman working on the second tower. He's likely to get the 2 for the bonus gold, but it is a consolation prize versus the Baron and the kill that GCU have secured. It's going to give them so much map control right up until that critical Infernal Drake spawns.
Yeah, really big invested there. I would have perhaps said, if we're trying to sort of maintain a more balanced view on the game, I would say if Arcanug didn't get caught there and they only lost the Baron, but they did manage to get 2 towers on the other side of it, that would probably have been the best EOE could have gotten in this situation, because now this sort of gold lead and all the damage that's coming out from GCU is really starting to weigh on them in these fights. It's becoming really, really hard. So FaZeman, they're able to get 2 towers. Worth noting, both of those having bounties is very important in any upcoming fights that we might see.
We are starting to see Edinburgh try to make use of their split pushes. Tumai in the top lane right now. We saw the value that FaZeman could get in bot lane on the Akali. A couple of towers picked up, but it feels like Akali especially really does want to be near the fights, wants to use the gold and the items to try and eliminate the carries, and they do need that damage to get the kills over the line. And now with the Baron, everyone is going to get pulled every which way. There's always going to be a tower under threat.
Yeah, I mean, especially when you have, name 2 words that strike more fear into a top laner's heart than Alawi and Baron, especially in the same sentence. Absolutely terrifying. That's basically, I think, what we're going to be seeing in terms of the game plan here, as we see some pressure onto Crawford, but an early flash is going to get him out.
Arcanug does find a little window there to get a small advantage. Definitely didn't take much investment for it, and it could be critical for Crawford in a later fight to get him out of dodge. Doesn't have any defense besides that Seraphs now, and they do need to eliminate these targets with the pick potential as quickly as possible. But right now, they will simply back away. Holding onto the towers just now. They've got all 3 inners still available. That does kind of mean there's a lot of gold for GCU to pick up on the map if they can get a push going. But they do also need to respect the pick from the Thresh, from the Poppy, as UOE just trying to keep their hands on this game before it scales too far out of their control.
Yeah, they definitely are in damage control right now, trying to make sure that they're not losing too many resources from this Baron. Obviously, some resources are going to go down, but they are just trying to turtle up at this point and minimize their losses. We really need to see them, especially as this game state gets down. We need to see more plays like FaZeman made about Baron, where you might need to trade an objective for it. I don't know about a Dragon Soul, but perhaps a Baron where you need to try and get gold somewhere else on the map, where you need to try and find your way to make resources, because right now they are down heavily as Feisman is perhaps bitten off more than he can chew.
He's in a bad spot right now. Did escape the hook and is going for the long way around, but CWL looking to cut him off at the pass. There's a flash available with the Nautilus ultimate. The point and click followed up by the dredge line, pushed him into stasis. A flash and an E surely is just delaying the inevitable, but the second ult charge, maybe this is enough. The Nautilus has a flash and a hook as well. Is he going to go for it, or is it just wasting time? Collateral damage can't secure it, and the TP is ready for Akali. Overall, this has got to be fine for UOE as they're looking for an angle to Chris G, but he says, what are you talking about? You cannot make this play onto me, and Arcanug gets absolutely crushed.
You picked an engage onto Alawi and you suffered the tentacle-based consequences. That's exactly what you cannot be doing here. When you're trying to force plays, I feel like the plays just, they can't be onto this Alawi, because if you are the one charging into her, she is in her comfort zone. We need to be seeing more map play here from UOE to try and find the advantages where they're not winning the fights here, as GCU are barreling down on the UOE space.
Nice little hook from Dr. Deathcap, threading the needle there, and they get some damage down. Fazeman is in and can get one kill. Maybe Nautilus as well, gonna suffer. A little bit of gold secured, and Heavenix now being chased down, but a lovely pullback from Lewis with the Blade Caller and Tumai on the flank. Can they get this Xayah over the line? One more W. There's the ultimate though, and Fazeman in for another. Heavenix now the last one left. Just the junglers duking it out in the mid lane, but Graves has Infernal. Graves is 9, 2, and 6. Graves has a Lord Dominic's. Poppy doesn't want any of that smoke.
I mean, that whole fight, among, you know, Red Pin proving once again that ADCs do lack object permanence with the Xayah feathers there. But among everything else, that was actually really, really good for UAE. They did claim a lot of bounties there because they are down. However, the question is, as we can see here, what are GCU getting after it? And it's a lot of towers. As we do manage to go into a replay here. So we see, as you mentioned, nice hook from Dr. Deathcap. It looks like he's bitten off more than he can chew early here, as he does end up going down. But it ends up being worth it for the play. They find the kill onto Crawford. Red Pin is excited, but as we see here, they just forget they exist. Feathers pulled through. That's how your entire health bar gone. Flash is burnt out. Lewis does have to flash forward. Tumai tries to find an angle, but a well-timed ultimate from Lewis is going to dodge pretty much everything, get just a bit of extra survivability down. And yeah, then we see the jungle meat sticks just trying to smack each other a bit.
Yeah, you can see that as soon as Akali is going in, one shot from the Graves is easily enough to take away 500, 600 HP from the Akali. Has now completed the Zhonya's, has a little bit more defenses to play with as well. The 3 items spike for Akali, they're certainly strong. They certainly have damage to leverage in these fights, but there's so many strong targets. Plus the Infernal Soul, the damage from GCU is just through the roof. As here comes Baron number 2. UOE in the area. They have sight of what's going on here, but I don't know if they can really make the play. Poppy once again without flash. Yeah,
this is the game for UOE here. They are teleporting in, but it feels like too little too late. An ultimate to get Graves out of the pit. They engage on to CWL as the fight looks like it's brewing.
Oh, another hook from Thresh lands. Red Pin looking for the passive there as Chris G in the base means this fight is suddenly on borrowed time as League Professor finds the Akali, and now GCU, there is nothing stopping them from the counterpunch. Flashing from Nautilus to get that CC down to the Jinx, the last one left in the river, and goes straight to the grey screen. In go the TPs to the base as Glasgow Caledonian University firing off huge in game number 1. A statement win to open up this grand final series.
Yeah, Edinburgh really feels like they need to go back to the drawing board after this one, because while the ideas were absolutely there, the execution was not. Alawi was an absolute menace there, as we saw the camera, the observers popping over, and by the time they even managed to get there, Fiora was already dead. So, as you said, a statement game here from GCU. How are Edinburgh going to adapt in game 2?
Yeah, absolutely. And I liked, we liked the strategy from Edinburgh. We liked what they had done to try and adapt. Didn't have any inherent issues with it. At the end of the day, I think GCU just came on better warmed up. They came in hotter into game 1. I think it was a little rough around the edges for Edinburgh. Fazeman in the mid lane taking a lot of pressure on the Akali, being caught trying to get an advantage over Crawford, but that just leaves the window in for Heavenix to come straight in. As we said, these mid laners are both vulnerable to the ganks, and we saw Edinburgh really suffering more than the other side in game number 1.
Yeah, one thing to definitely note here to make sure that it doesn't seem too doom and gloom as that's only game one of the series. Despite being down a consistent 1, 2, 3, later on 5, 10K gold, UAE held that together right until that last fight there. I would argue it didn't ever feel unwinnable until we got into those last 3, maybe 4 minutes. They were absolutely putting up a fight the whole way. So taking that into game two, they really just need to not let the loss get to them, not let how the game ended get to them. Say, okay, what are the small changes that we can get to change this game into our favor? Because it really is still down to the wire.
Yeah, absolutely. It had that feeling about it that if they could just get the right pick, the right thresh hook into the Poppy stun, if FaZe gets the right flank onto Crawford, onto Lewis without the ultimate, there was an angle back through. And the Graves is vulnerable, and we saw them going a little low, but maybe they just need to find the angle directly onto Heavenix first and kind of taking the other pieces around. You could see, even when Heavenix was the last left alive in that fight, no one could contest him. He was fine being the last one left there. He's the strongest member of the team. So ultimately, he was able to carry it through. And we'll need to see, what Edinburgh can do in regards to that. So they were focusing out on the bans. If we think back to that draft phase, they took away the Rengar, took away the Kayn. They left open the Graves. Do you think that the Graves is bannable at this point, or is it really just how we're playing about it that's the key here?
What's so hard about GCU is there is at least 10, maybe 15 picks where if Edinburgh banned them, I'd be like, yep, that's completely fair. I understand your reason.
Yeah.
Which is such a tough position to be in. It really, it harks back to sort of, peak LEC teams trying to play against Caps when he just has a champion Ocean in the, what was it, the 2019 meta, and just between the members of GCU, I mean, we even saw, I would not see an Alawi going out of mine there. So I think the Grays might have to go, but if it doesn't go, there's definitely angles to play around it. It's just, sort of neutering that early game.
Yeah, for sure. Very much. It seems like we are struggling to keep Heavenix down so far, but it's not impossible. Edinburgh have taken games off GCU before, and they have had a very close series before. But let's take a look at the MVPs from that first game. It was a bit of a slobber knocker, as you said. A lot of early fighting on the GCU side. No surprise. Heavenix coming in there with the Graves. A great start to the series for him. And then for UAE, we have FaZeman on the Akali. Tried their best to get some of those advantages through. Did find some key kills with the help of Poppy and with Dr. Deathcap. But ultimately, it wasn't enough. They were just too far behind. They couldn't find the angles. And GCU were able to cruise through on that jungle advantage.
Yeah, I mean, it really was just sort of even from, we saw that crazy early fight in bot lane where the only advantage that GCU actually got was the difference of first blood. But I think one thing to note there, and one thing that's really important to talk about, is that first blood went on League Professor. And it seems like even the smallest advantages, they're able to make the most out of. They're getting the last bit of juice out that lemon. They're getting everything that they need to try and bring their team forward. And it felt like that constantly throughout the game. It felt like UAE were going toe-to-toe with GCU, and it was so close, but GCU always had just that's honestly such a slight edge that kept taking them forward.
Yeah, for sure. And even looking at Christie up in the top lane there, 5-0-3 on the Akali and 2-my 0-4-1 on the Fiora. Just at the end of that laning phase, we were starting to see the Fiora actually be able to stand up to the Alawi in that early stage. You have a little less of a bad time in the early laning phase. You don't give over the kills that were given over. We could have seen a much different story for 2-my here. And it's as we said, this lane is incredibly volatile. It can go very heavily in either side. So we need to keep an eye on them for sure. And I think we'll both continue to see them playing in this way. But yeah, we said it's about the jungle. At the end, game one was around the jungle. Arcanug had a stronger performance than I maybe expected on the Poppy. Did get some stuff done. Did try to make the best of these team fights. But Heavenix is just a bit of a whirlwind. And we need to try and batten down the hatches, I guess, for Edinburgh. Or he is just going to blow them out of the door in this final series.
GCU, like we said, taking just the slightest advantages, pushing them to absolute most, making University of Edinburgh constantly have to play their absolute best. Game one goes the way of GCU, but it absolutely isn't over. If that game is any indication, we are going to have a fantastic series on our hand, folks. We're going to go to a short 10-minute break, and then we're going to be straight back in with game two. Don't go anywhere.
just like you. No, I always want stripes like you. Oh, I always want stripes like you.
Let's go. Just like you. No, I always want stripes like you. Oh, I always want stripes like you. Let's go.
And we are back here for the Battle for Scotland League of Legends Grand Final. GCU taking an early lead 1-0 in the series over University of Edinburgh. A decisive win it was, Dusk. But as we said, the name of the game is adaptation, so we need to see what the response is going to be from Edinburgh.
Yeah, I've been thinking while we've been away on our little break, I've been thinking about what UOE can do. And you mentioned, is the Grays ban on the table? I think it is. I think they have to get a few more picks away from Heavenix, hopefully still in that second phase, because they did let the picks go through to that second phase there. I'm also really interested in side select and what they end up going for here. And I think the option for them might actually be blue side. Try and get some of these comfort picks that they're wanting. It seems like the Nautilus for CWL is really comfort pick. So maybe not necessarily picking it away, but possibly it could be an angle for a ban. And just really what I want to see them do is try and neutralize Heavenix. And then for naturally, when in doing that, they're going to let a bit more draft strength go towards Chris G, Crawford, even the bot lane. That banning out Heavenix is going to let them get more picks. That's naturally going to happen. But it seems like the lanes outside of how we saw them dealing with the Alawi, it seems like the lanes weren't struggling as much as the jungle was.
Yeah, for sure. I think that was where the main issue lies there. I think, and the response to the jungle, right? So in mid lane, I think FaZe1 was doing fine. It's really just being able to predict and track where Heavenix is more effectively and play safer when that's needed. And then top lane, as we said, I think this is just run it back, pick a new matchup, and see if you win this time, and just try and win. You just have to be better on the day, I think, in this top lane. Both of these players are quite evenly matched over the history of their plays, and they just need to see who can get the advantage there. And then for bot lane, yeah, in the 2v2, we did see some advantage for Lewis and CWL with the aggressive picks, right? And the center was open, but not taken up by either side. And it seemed like Lewis and CWL particularly were happy to just step away from it and go for something else. So I don't know if we can if there's room to even drop the Draven ban. Leaving the Draven for Lewis is a risky maneuver. The guy is a very proficient Draven player. But as a champion, it's not unmanageable. You know, there are ways to try and neutralize a Draven. If you can try and outrange it and try and avoid letting it get the aggressive maneuver onto you, try to punish it for trying to play aggressive. There is an angle here that maybe frees up a ban to take away the Graves or take away something else for Heavenix. I don't know. It's up to UOE now. The draft is in their hands as we're into game number 2. GCU seeing Fit 2 Chainz absolutely nothing with some more FaZe1 mid lane bans. And so far, the Bel'Veth is the same from game 1 as well.
Yeah, and what I find really interesting is, they UOE ended up choosing red side here, so they do actually still want to keep the counter picks. Honestly,
yeah,
I can see both validity to arguments for both blue and red side, as we see the Draven ban is not getting dropped. However, we will still have room for hopefully R2 bans if Heavenix's pick is let go through. Now, I think the question here from GCU is: are you just happy to run the same draft back? Are you happy to just first rotate the Nautilus? If it's not broken, don't fix it. And they are.
I think the bans are identical to game 1 in the first rotation at least. So now for UOE, last time they took the Thresh and the Jinx, they were happy to just lock in a bot lane and then try and get the counters later on. Let's see if there's maybe some denial they want to pull here. Of course, last time they were denying the Akali, and they've still kept it with the scaling, but they've gone for the Zeri, something a bit more self-sufficient, and they've prioritized Tumai's champion here. They really want to get a better setup for that top lane here.
Yeah, I like this. Tumai is the K'Sante king of Battle for Scotland thus far. Every time they've been on it, not necessarily always popping off, because K'Sante, it's not a big high damage champion where you're making plays, but consistently nullifying any top lane matchup where they're trying to pop off, or if they're playing tanks, he's at least, even if not startlingly ahead in some of these matchups. So I really like shifting the priority up here, not looking to go for the counter picks in the top lane. Pick comfort, pick something you're going to perform on. That's what's important.
Yeah, absolutely. As the Orianna comes in for Crawford once again, did have a pretty solid lane performance with some assistance from Heavenix, but that's how it goes. Effectively able to bait in FaZe1, we could say, and Heavenix was ready to capitalize. So we'll see if they want to go for the same Xayah as well, if they wanted to deny something here. Looks like they might be pivoting and leaving Lewis with a few more options. We know he does have options. As a very strong Draven player, as we said, he is often has the Draven banned. He is a guy with competitive experience in the NLC lower divisions with Saltire in the past, and is very used to having Draven banned away from him every single game. So we know he's got more in the tank, and the Poppy is denied from Arcanog. And I do like this from GCU, because the Poppy was certainly valuable for Arcanog. Yes, they lost the game, but I think he was definitely getting a lot of work done on it.
Yeah, and I mean, technically, we're even maintaining some sort of flex possibilities here. It could go in the top lane. We could see it being picked up in the jungle. And Maokai, yet another flex answer, really. That could be anywhere. That could be support. That could be jungle. So a really interesting draft. I was worried we were going to get sort of more of the same, but the K'Sante coming through fills me with confidence for UAE. I really like that pick, getting comfort through. Taking away the Poppy, I think, is a really interesting pick for GCU. I'm not sure how it's going to play out. I'd rather, sort of see more how this draft goes. I think the Maokai is a fantastic flex.
Yeah, this Maokai is just a broken champion, man. It's just the best champion in the game, and I think it has been for so long. And then they, even when it was already the best champion of the game, then they buffed its jungle clear. I don't know what's going on behind the scenes there, but this champion is just so good, and you say flexible and so utilitous across the map. And it does mean that there is a fat wall in front of the Zeri to try and play the team fights later on, which is good. As we're into the second round of the bans, the Heavenix Kayn has been removed, and the Lewis Xayah hits the ban as well, almost forcing a Senna at this point, to be honest. So we'll see if there is another option still ready in the tank for Lewis. GCU focusing away the Phasmin Vex, which was the champion that UOE beat them on in the winners final, and then the Vi away from jungle.
Yeah, the Graves not banned here, as I perhaps thought it might be earlier. However, looking at this comp, I don't think it's a ban that you need to be putting your time into. When you have a K'Sante Maokai frontline staring down you, the Graves loses a lot of that sort of pick potential, as we see the Neeko picked in here. We mentioned sort of what the comps are wanting to do in the previous draft, and how both of them were wanting to play 1-4, 1-3-1, whatever it might be. I'm seeing some team fight on the side of UOE.
Oh yeah, they're ready to get stuck in for sure with the Neeko locked into this mid lane. It can bully the Orianna somewhat, at least they can both kind of bully each other. It's a bit of a skill matchup as far as I'm aware. And I like that this pivot where they've let the Chris G Akali go through because they know they have the K'Sante. They have the 2-my K'Sante and they go, that's a good enough answer for us. And it leaves them free to not have to pick that Akali for mid. They get the Neeko now there and they have this great CC chain to lock up and go through, as the Kai'Sa is the option. The classic Nautilus pick back before the Senna Nautilus was all the rage. So there is still a lot of 2v2 power back there, and that was certainly on display in game number 1.
Yeah, I think obviously depending on build, this is a big statement on how they want to play the game. Because we're seeing sort of two builds at the moment. We've got this sort of AP, LS, tech, and then we've got a bit more of a standard Kai'Sa build. I think the AP option to keep them further out, the Karthus does contraindicate that actually. So they'll probably be seeing a crit Kai'Sa then. So I think that's actually really tricky to play in the team fight when you've got K'Sante, Maokai, Neeko. Kai'Sa could really struggle with her shorter range in trying to find easy ways in to get damage.
Yeah, because you're trying to dive in and find that moment to get the critical ultimate, and Maokai's just finger over the W key, like, just press it. Do it. I dare you to press anything right near me, right? Bang. Instant W, into Neeko ult, K'Sante ult. That is terrifying. So I do like, once again, I love the plan for Edinburgh here. I love the strategy on display. We just need to see it on the Rift, as the Seraphine is the last lock-in. So even more teamfight presence here. They have such a strong front to back, but there is a lot of weight on Redpin's shoulders on the Zeri to be that true ultimate carry in the late game.
Yeah, UAE, I mean, this is just a draft out of an LEC team's book, right? This is wall-to-wall, just, K'Sante in the top lane, scaling ADC, Maokai in the jungle because he's broken, Neeko because she's great in the team fight. Seraphine to close it out might be the only slightly niche pick here, but I still think you could absolutely see a team playing it. This is just word for word exactly what you'd expect to be seeing from a professional team.
Yeah, absolutely. So for GCU, for the answers here, they kept the Nautilus, they kept the Orianna, and the Kai'Sa can fulfill a very similar position. It can be kiting back, though there is a bit more of an aggressive element there. Now, the difference is being the top side, the Karthus jungle, and the Poppy top lane. So Chris G on the Poppy, I imagine we'd expect this to mean he's not going to be able to have that same impact on the Illaoi, right? This is not necessarily as much of a lane bully, especially not into K'Sante. One does not just lane bully K'Sante on a normal melee pick. So I imagine that UOE are going to have at least a lot more stability up on the top side. And the Karthus is where it really throws a wrench into it all. Another strong farming jungler, another jungler that does not have to be everywhere to have effect on the map, especially now with the ultimate. So the eyes just have to be on Heavenix once again, and it's not because he's going to be making all of these plays, but he's going to be pivotal to the GCU win condition later on.
Yeah, I mean, fundamentally, what it is a very clear statement. What GCU and Heavenix are saying with that pick is, we have not seen you in any of the games that we've played, and especially in any of the games that we've won, you nullifying how good Heavenix is at jungle, basically, without wanting to big up their ego too much. How well they have been playing. And Karthus is a statement saying, we don't think that you're going to change that. We think that this is just how it's going to go. And if this Karthus pick ends up working out, then I'm going to be honest, I think this is just a clean 3-0 GCU, because it shows that Edinburgh aren't able to adapt to what Heavenix is putting out.
Yeah, if they can't keep him down in the CS, because he's naturally going to pull ahead of the Maokai as fast as the Maokai clear is. It's Karthus, that is what this champion does, and I want to see if Edinburgh are going to continue trying to actively pressure them, because we did see a couple of times in game number 1 where Arcanug and FaZeman would try to aggressively posture in the enemy jungle to try and catch them, to try and use their CC, use their spikes to get a lead there, and once again, that is possible, potentially even preferable into the Karthus. You cannot let him do what he wants. You've got all the CC you could ever need. So let's see if they can keep that one going and what the GCU response is. Last time it was just, let's just keep winning our lanes and then we get to mid game and we're kind of Gucci. But if that's not the case here, like with the lesser impactful top lane matchup, if they can get out of bot lane a little cleaner, UOA might have an evener footing to try and approach this mid game from.
Yeah, I mean, fundamentally, obviously, this is a massive oversimplification, but there's two ways traditionally that you would deal with a Karthus. You either kill the Karthus or you kill his laners early on in the game. You need to be trying to do one of those, because you need to be punishing the fact that in late game he's going to be one of, if not the strongest champions in any given game. So I want to see UOE being proactive in this game. I want to see them show that you can't just pick this Karthus and expect us not to punish it in any way. Whether that comes in the form, as you mentioned, of taking aggressive positioning in the enemy's jungle, punishing the Karthus or punishing the support if they walk in, or if that comes in the form of punishing the solo lanes, looking for good 3v3 plays, getting early objective stacking. Either of those, or even a mixture of the two, we need to be seeing that coming out here.
Yeah, it needs to be activity. It needs to be proactive from UOE to stop GCU just arriving at the victory. 30 minutes in, having skated through a lot of the game. Naturally, we did see GCU contesting a lot of objectives early on, and with the Karthus, that is obviously still very strong for him to do. He can set himself up in an objective, stand his ground, press E, and just say, well, come and fight me, and I've got damage to try and outdo you here. But I think that even less so than the Graves, the ganks are not strong from the Karthus, right? He's got the Wall of Pain, and that's kind of it. And we're not expecting, at least I'm not expecting, to see the same impact that Heavenix was able to have on the mid lane specifically with the Graves that can go and sit and wait for the Akali to come out the Shroud with the smoke screen that he has. Even if there is an angle to get behind him, I think that FaZeman will probably be fine in this middle lane. So it is going to be about what Heavenix can do as a solo entity and drawing the teammates to the objectives to play with him. That's his role in this team. He is the mastermind, the control tower of GCU right now. And on the Karthus, this is a quintessential identity for here. Everyone come and help me be the carry of this roster.
Yeah, I mean, I think what's quite funny is in the way that these comps have sort of worked out is I think both of them want to be to the objective first. Because you mentioned there, sort of Karthus wants to get in, set up the E and be like, look, I might die, but I'm taking one or two of you with me easily. But also in response to that, therefore, Enra has to be the ones who are first to the objective, and also that allows them to get the Nico flank positioning, the big ultimates that we've seen absolutely turn team fights.
Yeah, for sure. As we head on to the Rift here, game number 2. Let's see if University of Edinburgh can even this best of 5 up, or if Glasgow Caledonia University will head on to match point after just a couple of rounds. The University of Edinburgh squad heading as a 5-stack into this mid lane with a little bit of an interesting path here. Maybe expecting Professor, but stepping a little too early. Are they going to commit the flash? Are they going to commit? They'll at least take the Summoner trade from the Karthus.
That is huge. We were just talking about how you need to punish the Karthus early, either through the lanes or through him. And now with this flash going down, that just became 10 times easier.
Absolutely. So strong start from UOE, trying to plan where League Professor is going to be, and when they know the flash is down, we need to see pressure from this. CWL is going to likely meet another 4-stack of UOE once again around the corner, and a second flash is burned from GCU. Edinburgh starting these lanes off right, taking the safety away from their opponents.
So consolation prize here for GCU. It is Hex Flash on the Nautilus, so they will still be able to find aggressive windows, but it's not going to be as cut and dry. And yeah, that is going to sort of neuter some of the early aggression that we could sometimes see coming out from the Kai'Sa Nautilus. So really well played here from UOE in the early game, moving around as a unit, making sure no one can contest them, getting a lot of resources early. 2 flashes is really big no matter which way you put it. And now Contrary to last game, we see the junglers pathing in opposite directions. So Maokai going to be heading up into this top side, seeing where the pressure is in the solo lanes. And Karthus going to be making his way down to the bot side and likely just basing and walking back for another.
Full clearing throughout, I imagine Heavenix will be doing, unless there is an absolutely unfailable angle there. As you can already see the power from the Nico. Getting the stun through the minions does give you an extra incentive to go this way. And for Lewis, as you said, Dusk, quite short range on the Kai'Sa. Normally your instinct is to hide behind the minions. Against Nico, that is death. You cannot be hiding behind those. It's just going to make the stun even worse.
Yeah, and I mean, it almost didn't even clock in my brain there when they did lock in the Seraphine at the end, that this was a flex pick to the last moment, like you rightly say, and as we can see here. Yeah, with the Nico support, I think that's a really good choice for putting it there because, yeah, Kai'Sa just not able to take the positioning that she wants, and you add to that the Seraphine versus Orianna. The lane is absolutely not free by any means. I'm not gonna say that, you know, one player just has an easy way out, but it's most likely that both of these two players here in the mid lane are just going to be chilling, scaling, and hoping that they can be influential in the late game.
Yeah, we'll see if the junglers want to even try and influence that, but yeah, FaZeMan is perfectly happy to just farm it up. Crawford as well. It's like with the blind picking Ori that we're seeing so many times, this is it's not really like a primary carry champion. It does have a lot of damage it can offer, but normally it's wanting to support someone else. As a hook lands onto the Zeri, the summoner's surely going to have to be burnt here. The Ghost is there. Ignite as well gets the flash out of Redpin, as League Professor's presence was enough to get the summoners out of Zeri.
Yeah, Ghost and Flash gone there with after the hook and especially the wall to follow up. Yeah, it's just going to have to get out. They thought they could maybe get out with just the Ghost, but yeah, the Flash has to be burned. So good play there. It's very rare that you see, you know, sort of an earlier Karthus gank, but good realization that they were pushed up enough there. A simple lane gank could absolutely get some resources. So really good angle there by GCU to try and, you know, make the most of a weaker early game jungler. And we do actually end up seeing the scuttles being traded on either side. So Karthus actually pretty happy with how this early game is going from thus far. Obviously, we're only 4 minutes in.
Absolutely, and we see the value again coming through from the CWL Nautilus. He just doesn't really miss in times like that. You know, he's getting so much value out of this pick. Him landing that hook is what makes this even a play at all, and that's why they're first picking it every game, right? You mentioned that it might even potentially be bannable as this series goes forward. Perhaps just pushing the GCU bot lane off this ultimate comfort where they're always able to find value, always able to start plays to set up Heavenix on these farming junglers. Perhaps that is a solution they will need to entertain later on if they can't find the wins here.
Yeah, I think it really importantly reflects a conversation I had with Crawford earlier, I believe it was last week, in regards to his team, and we were talking about the impact of ranks of players within your team, and he specifically brought up CWL, because CWL, I believe, last I checked, is only like sort of high gold, low plat. But regardless of that fact, he says in coordinated 5v5 play, he just plays different. He just plays better. He plays incredibly with the team, and he plays very well on his comfort picks. And I mean, we've seen that. Last game, he was incredible on the Nautilus, and even early on in this game, he's exerting so much pressure.
Might have a contest over this dragon as Heavenix is in the area. Though we have mid priority for University of Edinburgh. FaZeMan watching through that mid lane, waiting for Crawford to come through. The ults are not available just yet, but there's no summons on Zeri. Hook lands onto the Maokai, W's onto the dragon to get out of danger right there. Karthus is in, drops that E, trying to get the Qs down as well, and it's first blood for Lewis. Can there be anything on the backside for UOE? But it's a 4v3 right now, but FaZeMan picks up the double kill with a high note, and Redpin fires off. It pings 6 for the Seraphine, and it's a huge turnaround for Edinburgh.
Okay, well, hold the phone. Dragon's gone down, but you just gave 2 kills and 2 assists to a Zeri, with the other side of those 2 assists going over to the Seraphine. This is monster territory. This is the stuff of nightmares. This is the things that haunt people's solo queue dreams. Let's see how the play actually did end up playing out. So it looked like they were trying to get it finished. Dr. Deathcap unable to find his positioning in, and then Arcanug just didn't have the health pot. They just walk in and use their health as a resource to get the dragon down, and then trying to find their way to walk out. However, they do not have that way. The Zeri's there dealing damage, and now the resources here are just massive. A really good ultimate to make sure they find that final catch. Well played by UOE. They might not have got the dragon, but they have now got themselves a 1k gold lead.
So important for Edinburgh to start this game off with a lead like that, and Arcanoid looking to keep the momentum in their favor as level 6s have been hitting the top side. All out goes to Mike Rudge in there with the W, but the Maokai is ready and waiting, and this is just a bully circle for the Poppy. No chance to escape. A flash is burnt, but one more Q and a dash will lock this up for the K'Sante. Edinburgh now with leads across the map.
Yeah, really well-timed gank there, just knowing what your positioning is, knowing that Poppy was just out of her range there, continuing to extend this advantage. And now I want to see them keep their pedal on the metal, because I think the one thing that UAE need to remember here is, as much as it's good that you're getting these picks, you can't just be content with 5. You need more. You need to keep the advantage, because otherwise you will just have these late game scaling monsters coming in from GCU. While I say that, as I mentioned earlier, the kills on the Zeri and the kills on the Seraphine early are going to make them for monstrous team fights. So I can really see, as long as, like I said, they keep their pedal to the metal, keep their foot on the gas, and they keep going for objectives, they keep going for ganks, this game is looking very much in UAE's favor.
I really just want to see the full damage Seraphine. We have the Catalyst and the Seraph, so we're going for a Rod of Ages into Seraph's Embrace later on for them with the Dark Seal as well. Just don't go any support items. I don't want to see it, right? I want to see full damage on this Seraphine. Don't leave it all on Redpin's shoulders. It's a tough matchup. This team is very skilled you're against. Give yourself a second option. And that damage, as we've seen, even without the items, can be massive, as now Karthus coming in for another play on bot side. The Nico gets the ult in time, but they'll still go down as Redpin doesn't quite have the summoners. Trades back one, and the Maokai's around the corner, but it's not in time. Lewis with a shutdown in bot side.
Yeah, Redpin, unfortunately, they're just a bit over-aggressive with the E-dash again, manages to get himself caught by the Nautilus auto and gets himself locked down. That is unfortunate play. I believe that was a shutdown going over there as well that was on the Zeri. So, yeah, that's a really tough play and not what you wanting to be see. But very good, very well identified by GCU there, as they're even looking... Chris G appears to just be soloing some grubs for his team as well. So, you mentioned... earlier the damage Seraphine. I do agree, and regardless of whether it's just not wanting to see a heal bot Seraphine, I think the damage here is actually really important, because when you look at their damage profile, Maokai and a support Nico is simply just not going to be enough to carry the AP portion. If they start itemizing to deal with this Zeri, and Zeri doesn't get as far ahead as you're wanting, you wouldn't have consistent AP damage. But getting the damage out on the Seraphine, it doesn't actually nerf your healing and shielding that much. Obviously, it's weaker, but you're still getting AP. Your heals are still getting stronger. So I would definitely say it's the right call going forward in this game.
At the threat of the 4v4 down there, but GCU pumping the brakes, not wanting to just throw the hook out and get it started. It's a dangerous 4v4 to call at this point in the game as Crawford gets chunked out by the Seraphine. These high notes are just doing insane damage across, even at this early stage. With the Catalyst, the guy has one damage item, and it's a Dark Seal that's half stacked, and this is the kind of power that the Seraphine has already.
Yeah, I mean, this is exactly what I was expecting to see here with the way these two team comps are playing out. We mentioned that they both want to be the ones first to the objective, and this is exactly what we're seeing. We're seeing 3 people here in the bot lane. We originally had 4 with the mid laners already pre-positioning for a Drake that at the time wasn't spawning for a minute. They both know just how valuable River and Bush Control is going to be into this fight.
He's been getting so much poke down before this objective fight. Throws the ultimate, misses it though. Does get the beat drop, and with one more Q can find the kill. There it is, and will find one. But here comes Heavenix around the corner. There's a Karthus ult ready. Doesn't choose to drop it. Isn't confident it can actually get the kill through the Seraphine W. Presses it now. Does the cooldown there. There it is. Easily shielded up by the Seraphine, and Maokai can cover off the Nautilus. And that's another power of this Seraphine that we haven't touched on yet, is that AoE shielding to try and neutralize the threat of that Karthus ultimate.
Yeah, I mean, really well played there by Feisman. Did end up getting pulled back into the tower. It was looking dicey for a second. The ultimate was questionable, but you got the kill, and that's all that matters. The solo bolo came through. And I really expected that kill to mount into more pressure onto Dragon. However, what I think happened off screen was that there was a little bit of skirmishing in which Zeri found herself going low, so it doesn't actually turn into a Dragon for UAE, but there is very much a alternate universe where that was just a simple Dragon there for UAE and even more advantage. So very well played by them.
For sure, still keeping themselves stable and on control as the first items are starting to come through here. Zeri, of course, Nico is just in there hiding in the minion wave. It comes to Lewis. The burst is insane. Now, Karthus, of course, was hiding in the bot lane. Where else would he be, it seems? And the trade is 1-for-1. But I love where UOE's head's at. That was a very sneaky play with the Nico.
Yeah, you could see immediately the pings going down. GCU were counting their minions, very well done, but it didn't end up mattering. The engage didn't come out quick enough. They didn't manage to knock up the Nico and kill her fast enough for the ult to not go off, and yet then the burst just came through. The Nico ult, the Zeri ult, it was really big, and even though what looked like it should have been a really strong play for GCU, because Nico was able to survive, UE are able to translate that into a dragon.
Good flash from Crawford. Had to blow it. Don't want to be greedy with it. Gets himself out alive. But I love the way that for GCU, they have this Kai'Sa Nautilus that you really want to be trying to force. But clearly, Deathcap and Redpin have just been keeping them at arm's length until Karthus appears on the same screen. And suddenly, then CWL always finds the hook. Lewis always is there to follow it up. And just the presence of this jungler for GCU is enough to unlock that bot lane. And if he wasn't there, I imagine we might not have really seen anything out of Lewis in CWL. Just with how well Redpin and Deathcap have been playing the 2v2.
Yeah, I mean, it's a complete night and day to previous game where we saw them really struggling. They got 2v2 killed twice in the previous game. Lewis clearly very happy with what's going on. But this game, they're really standing their ground. They've clearly gotten champions and sort of a bot lane dynamic they're a lot happier with, and it's showing. And I mean, I don't want to keep banging on about it, but we talk about adaptation and how it's going to be the most important thing in this series. Edinburgh showing it.
Yes, they had such a great early game plan here. We've liked both of their draft strategies so far, and now they're actually being given a chance to show what the draft is for, because they haven't had the disastrous early of game one. We do have a catch to onto Arcanog. The Orianna ultimate is down, or it's Deathcap, I should say. He's tricked me and everyone else. The depth charge is there, but the Ignite not going to take the Nico down as UOE are fighting back. They'll catch the support on their side. There's the shielding from Phasmin, and Deathcap walks away. Another big play from the Seraphine, saving his team, taking the kills as well, as Tumai now getting aggressive onto the Poppy. Does he want to go all out here? Gets him into tower range. Perfection is the angle on the K'Sante ultimate. Jukes the Poppy as well, and there's the clean 1v1 kill.
This is why he is the K'Sante king. This is why you cannot play near that wall versus any K'Sante, let alone Tumai's K'Sante. Really well played there. We saw it from the fight as well with Dr. Deathcap. Yet the clones have been fantastic this game. The hook goes down, but it's GCU that end up getting punished. It's CWL who ends up biting off more than they can chew. I'm loving how UOE are playing this game. They're sticking to their advantages. It feels really significantly like this game. Not only do they have champions that they're more comfortable on, but they're more comfortable on the matchups that they've put themselves into. And comfort, I think, shines through over everything, especially at this level.
Good route onto Lewis, gets the killer instinct away from the Kai'Sa there. Bit of safety removed, but they'll back away from the imminent Karthus roam. Once again, to be expected, or will they? You need to give some respect right there. Nautilus hook onto the terrain, will find nobody. And this time, Edinburgh escaped the Heaven-X pressure. But something that I hadn't noticed before is that we're looking at an Eclipse Poppy in that topside dust. We have a little bit of cooking going on from Chris G. I have seen this a couple of times, the kind of full damage or the very dueling heavy Poppy. Now, the fact that he's 0-2 down and has not had the lane of his dreams kind of makes me worry he's going to be a tad useless later on, because the tankiness isn't going to be there and the damage is going to be behind on items.
Yeah, I think I agree with everything you said. However, counter argument. It's still Poppy. It's still this little rat Yordle, and
rat.
You've made the mistake that I make quite often, Kelm, where I'm gonna cut myself off here as we see a big play in the bot lane.
And there's no Kai'Sa ultimate, remember. Easy soda. Redpin actually with the solo credit on that Kai'Sa. As you tap back to Chris G, getting run down by Tumai once again. In goes the W, the Qs. The blades are flying. And it's a killing spree for K'Sante as the bot lane tower falls to. UOE are accelerating now.
Yeah, kills across the map. It doesn't matter where you are in GCU. You are not safe. And this comes back to what we were saying about the Poppy. Well, the Eclipse does indicate the damage build. You're into a K'Sante. You do not deal damage to this man, especially when he's 2-0, now 3-0 up on you. Chris G just trying to survive in this lane. And what I did want to mention about this build especially is the Eclipse often lulls us into a false sense of security. This Poppy will likely go Eclipse, and then what I've been seeing a number of Poppy players be doing, whether it be in top or jungle, is it's Eclipse into pretty much tank items. So
Sure.
I still think here we will be seeing a very tanky frontline Poppy. It's just she makes such good use of that Eclipse shield, constantly proccing it with EQ, with Q, like the first proc Q and the second proc Q, auto and anything. Like she can just constantly proc it while being in the front line of this fight, and is one of the best users of Eclipse. As we see the positioning here, again, we mentioned both teams want to be here early for this Drake. It's just spawned in. Let's see how they choose to position around it, the river, and if we end up getting a fight start here.
This time UOE, they've got the Maokai, they've got the gold lead, they have so much threat to throw a GCU if they want to go for it. League Professor is there, does have the flash. I don't know if it's worth flashing for, but let's see if he wants to go for it. Just dropping the Karthus Qs over. An easy smite away from Arcanug, and that will be no contest for GCU. The respect has to be there, and really, the only player from Caledonian right now who's having a good game is Heavenix on the Karthus. 2-1-2 with a big CS lead. We expected as much, and that for me is the only thing keeping me just kind of having one eye on it, right? The Karthus late game win condition, the comeback potential if he just gets the 6 items and he just starts popping heads with the Dark Harvest procs. There is always that kind of backstop win condition for Caledonian, but UOE definitely very much in control of this game, and this is their mid-game to take by control.
Yeah, the onus is on UOE now. Keep playing a safe and good game. Don't overextend. Your champions are doing what they're meant to do. Get objective pressure, get kills where people are overextending, and keep doing what you're doing because it is working so far. And we mentioned about the Karthus scaling, and it's absolutely going to be very powerful going into this game. But I think we've got quite a lot of scalings on both comps. Talking with the Karthus, Kai'Sa is also dealing massive amounts of damage in the late game. Orianna is absolutely nothing to shake a stick at. And on the other side, we've got amazing scaling from really all their champions in terms of what's happening in teamfights. As Redpin is just going forward on their own.
Yeah, takes the summoners away with no questions asked. Doesn't even need to pop the ghost themselves. This is a very different Redpin from game number 1. They got that early goal. They are running with it.
Yeah, the confidence to move forward there in the face of what could be a Nautilus hook or damage, just knowing that your profile is big enough right now. You are dealing enough damage to make this good. The preemptive Maokai ultimate over the tower there to just make sure it's their objective and they don't need to worry about any kind of contests coming in. We're looking for a fight. A shockwave could be big, but it misses. Oh my god.
Yeah, slides away, does the Zeri, and it does take the Maokai. It gets him close, but does not take him away. And UOE get out. I love the way they're pushing the advantage here, using the Maokai aggressively just to take position, get the objective and back away. It's very, it's very cool and collected gameplay from Edinburgh, but it's not slow. It's not passive. They're taking active advantages on the map, but they're not overstepping, not going for flashy, crazy plays where they don't need them.
Yeah, and that's what I really like how they're playing, as Christie hangs on to the last little bits of health of his tower, is when you get early leads like this, it is easy to just say, okay, we've got the lead, let's just play for objectives. But they're not just playing for objectives, they're playing to make their opponents trip up. If anybody had overextended onto that tower, they would have been caught by the Maokai ult. We've seen kills across the map where players haven't been where they should be, also backed up by the fact that they're taking objectives. You know, League, whilst it is a game about objectives and structures, it's also about making the most of every advantage you can. In game 1, we saw GCU being able to take a mountain and take a molehill and turn it into a mountain. And this game, we've seen UE on the other side of that coin just building a steady lead and keeping it chugging just too fast for GCU to keep up.
Yeah, for sure. I love the vision that's being put down by them as well. They're making sure they know what's coming towards them as they go for these plays. The Baron is live. It was past the 20-minute mark. And I wonder if UOE might want to just get a bit crazy and start threatening to take it down, because it's not easy for GCU to walk into this composition. As we have said, Chris G taking a look there, does get some wards down. Heavenix as well, threatening with the Cassante down on the bot side. Crawford matching it. Lovely stun by Chris G, isolating Faceman, and in goes Lewis to try and get the kill. But now the support is there from the Zeri, and just clips the Kai'Sa, does the Seraphine ultimate. It's 2 quick kills for Edinburgh. The TPs are in, and GCU are running for the hills.
Clean 2 kills there. GCU just, they didn't have the damage to follow it up, and it looks like they're going to turn straight onto the Baron. This is somewhat risky. You are like half health on Feisman and Redpin, and damage can absolutely come down, but it looks like they're going to secure it. Crawford here walking up. He might have something to say about it.
Be the shockwave of a lifetime. CWL's over the wall. Heavenix has the ultimate, but in goes Deathcap with a beautiful Pop Blossom directly onto the jungler. The keystone player for Caledonia gets caught, drops the ultimate after death, but there's the Seraphine shield, and Tumai is going crazy in the backside while this is going on. An excellent execution from University of Edinburgh, and that Baron is your well-deserved prize. Chris G TPing in. I don't know if he's got a real angle in here, buddy, but Lewis is round the corner. Maybe we go for round 2.
Does go in. That's incredible. Don't expect to see that. Yeah, and he's
incredible.
Yeah, fantastic. Great stuff from Chris G. Yeah, no, I was expecting maybe at most you try and throw the big hammer in there. It was on cooldown. I didn't even see that at the time, so he wasn't even looking for a big hammer.
Yeah.
Slight misplay there, to say the least. But what it was, more importantly, was a beautifully played fight by Yui, especially Dr. Deathcap. A beautiful 3-man Nico ultimate to get them all dead across the board. Really well played. Now the Baron's gone down for Edinburgh, and they're going to try and get this Dragon on the back half to put themselves on Soul Point.
This is just as dominant, if not more so, than Caledonia's game number 1. And that is very rare to see the momentum swing back so heavily after such a rough start, but that puts them onto Infernal Soul Point, and they're heading right back to this mid lane. CWL's keeping an eye on them, but there's really not an easy way in. Crawford may be caught up by the Nico. There's the root, but no follow-up immediately. The Maokai is called. Nautilus might get grabbed here, and there's Redpin over to follow it up. They get the Nautilus flash. The Seraphine ultimate is used as well. It catches onto the Orianna. Lewis is catching a bounty in topside, but he's losing members in mid.
Beautifully played by Edinburgh. They're just, like we say, eking out every advantage they can, chasing them down, pushing them out of their jungle. They weren't content with the objective. They wanted the advantage and they wanted the kill, and they got it down onto Crawford as they're now pushing in Baron waves in 2 lanes. And the damage going down on Tushy is just too much.
These roots from Nico, man. Dr. Deathcap on a ranged AP support is fearsome, man. I've been keeping an eye out for the Vel'Koz. We might still see it in this series, but this guy on ranged supports is so scary as the inhibitor mid falls bot lane as a wave prepped, and then maybe just keep this push going.
Yeah, fantastic to choose to move down. GCU looking to posture for a fight, but what can you do here? The team of Yui is just so strong. Poppy going forward. It might be too much.
Catches the root and goes down to a legendary Seraphine. CWL as well with no options left. 2 more dead. The front line destroyed for Caledonia as Tumai steps up to take control. Second inhib down as Nico's there with another beautiful stun. Dr. Deathcap catches and does it again. Under the tower, it's a little bit scary. Karthus ult is there, but Tumai behind the Nexus eliminates the Karthus, finds his way onto Crawford, doesn't quite get it as CWL up the fountain will catch him out, but the Zeri is there to clean up the pieces. University of Edinburgh clap back so very hard in game number 2, and this series goes to 1-1.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have a series on our hands. This is what I wanted to see.
We had to say it.
Had to say it. It's the line. I've got to do it. I'm sorry. I was goosing the second that you were arriving the game. I'm gonna say it.
I'm gonna.
We have the series. I'm so excited. After that game 1, my confidence was a little shaken. I'm like, GCU are just getting away with the same bag of tricks that they did in winners finals. Yeah. I was worrying, but UE have shown that. But what I really like about the way that draft played out was that we have it in our notes. Something we talked about is Glasgow Caledonian draft very high damage drafts, and what answers that better than a last pick Seraphine, who means that Karthus can get nothing off of his ultimates ever because she just presses a button and shields the entire team. Really well drafted. Incredibly played. There was not a moment there, contrary to game 1 where GCU were playing very well. It did feel like UE were taking some fights. They were managing to even it back up. That was just clean start to finish from Edinburgh.
it was domination from University of Edinburgh. They adapted the strategy and it came up massive for them. And now we'll need to see what the answer from Caledonia is. One thing that I think we didn't get to see in that game that I was thinking about there was that the K'Sante, as well as being a very comfortable pick for Tumai, is it feels like a very nice Karthus answer because you can remove him. You know how he likes to just post up in the middle of the pit, press E, die, and then press R? If he goes to try to do that, you can just K'Sante ult him through the wall and remove him from the whole fight, and he doesn't get to do the Karthus thing. So this K'Sante, I think, needs to go right back on the ban pile if it ever made it through before, possibly first rotation, because this pick for Tumai is just too good. At the very least, if Chris G is going to be forced into a tankier matchup, that just doesn't seem to be the wave for GCU up there.
Yeah, I mean, we saw game one, the K'Sante did get banned in the second rotation. UE decided that, well, you know what, let's pick a first rotation. I think, I'm sure Tumai was in that call saying, I think I'm confident into whatever's picked into it. And he was absolutely right. Really well played. And now this just completely throws a wrench because GCU, we mentioned in draft, they were basically drafting carbon copy from game 1 to game 2. Obviously, it did end up changing up after the first picks, but those 3 bans and the first 2 picks with the Nautilus and the Orianna were the exact same. Now, I would say you're gonna have to drop one of those bans for the K'Sante.
Yes, I think so. Yeah, it was the Taliyah, the Hui, and the Xin Zhao were the first 2 bans, right, from both 3 games. So I think we can maybe leave the Xin. Leave it to Arcanog, because if I'm Arcanog, I'm thinking that Maokai was pretty fun. I'm gonna get me another Maokai game maybe real quick if they'll let me have it. So I think we gotta drop the Xin ban, and then maybe put the K'Sante on there, because Tumai is just a little bit too good at this champion. And that's even when they leave the Akali up, right? They left the Akali up, they wasn't given to Chris G. They tried to use this other strategy to go for the Poppy. It didn't work out, so we'll need to see what the adaptation is up in that top side specifically, if we're gonna let him do tank v tank again, or if we'll try and go for the bruises, try and go for the punish. For Chris G's side. Let's talk about the jungle though. Let's talk about Heavenix on this Karthus, because as we said, another farmer did have a lot of impact still in the early game just through the aura that he brought into the bot lane, just enabling CWL and Kai'Sa to find the kills. Not as much, and just the rest of the map was going very, very rough. So do we think this is a Karthus problem, or do you think it was just like maybe the other lanes and maybe just the rest of the game as a whole that didn't pan out?
Well, I think from GCU's position here, if I'm trying to put myself in their shoes, I might not actually be too worried. The K'Sante is shaking me because that changes up draft strategy. But just in terms of the Karthus itself, I think that game, it didn't feel like a test. It's absolutely something they've practiced and they know before. But it was a test of UOE to say, okay, we're playing with our cards on the table here. This is a Karthus. You need to do something about him, and we don't think you're going to. We mentioned this in the draft. And they've seen that UAE did do something about the Karthus. They did it through the lanes. They didn't particularly pick on the Karthus, but they got objectives. They got loads of pressure in their lanes, and then they followed on and they executed through that. So GCU now have this information, and they go, okay, we need to adapt our draft strategy. I think the Karthus won't be seen again for that reason. It's not to say necessarily the Karthus was bad. It's just within what they need to do against UAE, the champion doesn't really fit the bill.
Yeah, maybe we see Heavenix pivot back to something that can have a bigger lane impact. Because the Karthus and the farming were strong, but we saw the Graves have a big impact there. And we know that with picks like the Rengar, with the Kayn, we know that Heavenix has pools that can be heavy gankers. And that's, if the lanes are getting attacked, we've got to fix it. We've got to have the counter ganks ready to try and sort it out, and maybe that is the distance that Heavenix will want to go. I believe we can have a look at the MVPs from that game. I might have just told a lie, but no, I haven't. I'm absolutely true.
Fantastic.
So let's take a look for GCU. It was, in fact, CWL with the Nautilus finding all the hooks in that bot lane they needed to find, getting the kills that they were able to secure. Obviously, as a Nautilus, when the game is going bad, you're going to rack up a lot of deaths. That's just the nature of the beast, but it does seem like another very strong game for CWL. And as we were saying early on, kind of earning the consideration of almost getting a Nautilus ban or a Nautilus denial at least, because of how comfortable and how impactful he is on that pick.
Yeah, and then on the other side, the UE MVP, it feels wrong to give it to anyone other than FaZeman. I mean, whilst everyone was playing very well on that team, and I mean, you have an excuse for giving it to Tumai on the K'Sante, you have an excuse to giving it to the Zeri, the Nico, honestly, yeah, the Maokai. Honestly, just give UAE MVP for that game, because it was incredible. But I think it makes sense. I think it makes sense to go to Feisman just the most because that not only the champion but also how well they played it just meant that GCU could. It really did feel like there was nothing there as we got to the end of that game. A severe sense of sort of hopelessness for the GCU comp when any damage you're trying to do, all of a sudden there's a 200 Seraphine shield.
Yeah, man.
But she's also dealing 500 damage because she's built that.
He drops one Q, chunks all of your backliners down to half, presses W, completely nullifies Karthasar. Like, I guess, I don't know, man. Seems unplayable to me, but yeah, that was very, very tough. A huge impactful pick and very well executed for UOE. But you're absolutely right. Pretty much everyone on that team has a solid argument for an MVP, or at the very least, they're all pulling their weight. And this is what UOE feels that their strength is. They feel that they are all strong carry threats, and that's what their opponents thinks too. When I asked Crawford what his opinion was of University of Edinburgh, they are very much of the same mind. There's no slackers there. There's no one you can try and pick on that is going to be an easy target. They're all reliable, and we saw in this game just how reliable they can all be once they're on the right footing.
They got the draft that they needed. I feel like that's what it was. Is game one, it felt like the ball was very much in GCU's court. They were playing their game, but UOE stood their ground. They got the Cassante. They had a fantastic last pick, Seraphine, which really answered all the problems of the draft. And they showed that when they have the draft that they want in their hands, execution isn't hard. They struggled with execution game one. Execution was nice and easy in this game too.
Yeah, they flipped the switch, turned it on their head, and gave us a very dominant win in game number 2. But for now, we're going to go back to a short break. We'll be back in just a few minutes as this series rolls on in the Battle for Scotland Grand Finals.
Agarrados de la mano mientras al viento, pienso lo vivido en todos los momentos. Ahora por la noche solo sueño ese concierto que cambie la historia de nuestro cuento. Agarrados de la mano mientras al viento, pienso lo vivido en todos los momentos. Es que no lo sé si estoy mejor sin ti. Es lo que te decía, llamarte de tus mentiras y creo que no eres para mí. Es que no lo ves, que estoy mejor sin ti. Es lo que tú querías, aunque no me lo decías. Y yo sé que no eres para mí. Na, na, na. La madre de mis hijos te llamaba antes, pero nuestro era un amor de farsantes. Tú solo querías los billetes y diamantes. Nunca será lo que éramos antes. Aunque me lo suplique no vamos a volver. Tú me hacías daño y no quería ver que fue todo un papel. Quería besarte y perder el conocimiento, pero me conozco y sé que a mi corazón le miento. Ya no me valen todos sus lamentos. Se te ha acabado el tiempo. Y es que tú sabías que iba a pasar. No llores más. Agarrados de la mano mientras al viento, pienso lo vivido en todos los momentos. Ahora por la noche solo sueño ese concierto que cambie la historia de nuestro cuento. Agarrados de la mano mientras al viento, pienso lo vivido en todos los momentos. Es que no lo sé si estoy mejor sin ti. Es lo que te decía, llamarte de tus mentiras y creo que no eres para mí. Es que no lo ves, que estoy mejor sin ti. Es lo que tú querías, aunque no me lo decías. Y yo sé que no eres para mí. Na, na, na. No eres para mí.
There's been something on my mind and it keeps hurting me. You've been treating me like I have been your enemy. You are something I don't want to have. A million problems inside of my head. This is something I cannot forget. Another one. You're a needle in my didn't see the signs, cause you kept hiding it. Now slowly every part of me is shivering. I kept denying all the pain and didn't want to hurt again. Now slowly I began to see the real you. You are something I don't want to have. A million problems inside of my head. This is something I cannot forget. Another one. You're the only one. You
Welcome back, everybody, to the BFS League of Legends Grand Finals. We are now at 1-1. Both of these teams have taken a very, very convincing win. So we are just none the wiser, I think, as to who is actually going to win here today. Both of these teams had wins over each other in the previous season, and now we're still even. That is exactly what we want from the best of 5.
Oh, absolutely, exactly what we want for a best of 3. I mean, now net across all of Battle for Scotland, I believe Edinburgh still has 1 game's worth of advantage, 1 whole game. Fantastic, because 2-1 in the previous series, and I believe Edinburgh won the first one 2-1. So we're pretty much neck and neck. These guys have played lots of games now with the previous best of 3. So as you say, we are none the wiser, because, you know, if those were 2 really close games, and we could say, you know, this is what Glasgow Caledonia needs to slightly win it here, and this is what Edinburgh needs to slightly win it here, we could give some fantastic levels of analysis. But both of them just pulled a rabbit out of the hat, really. They just pulled a fantastic game where they played to their strengths, they demonstrated their strengths, and won with them. And then the table flipped, and we had the same again from the other side.
Yeah, and now we really do need to see what the answer is going to be from GCU, as it seems like we took a game for Edinburgh. They came in with a certain idea for game 1. It did not work. They came in with a new idea in game 2, and it worked really, really well. So now we need to see what the answer from GCU is, because we've started to see some exposure in the bot lane and the top lane and the mid lane. All of the lanes have started to struggle a little bit more. Specifically, the mid lane that has been blind picking Orianna for Crawford. We need to maybe see something a little safer, or perhaps just let him have a later pick. Maybe give him a counter. Maybe give him a little bit more of an agency in the draft to step up against FaZeman, who is the centerpiece of this Edinburgh roster. Like, generally speaking, it is a very well-rounded roster, but this Seraphine was absolutely key. The Akali was strong in game 1, and trying to stop this guy from getting rolling certainly seems like an idea for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, while Orianna has been the pick for, you know, the last 2 games, it's absolutely not to say that that's all Crawford can play. He does have a fair number of champions under his belt, a lot of control mages, also some hidden demons. His Pantheon has been a monster throughout Battle for Scotland. So there is plenty of picks on the table and a lot of diversity that we can be seeing coming out there. So yeah, I like your idea thus far, sort of moving it to a later pick. I think fundamentally what it is they need, I'm really curious as to how this K'Sante changes the draft, because the Seraphine was really good last game. I think that was more sort of a specific answer to the comp that was drafted by GCU though. But this K'Sante is probably going to be an eternal presence in this series now. I can't see it getting dropped. I think it's either banned by GCU or early rotated by Edinburgh, because you saw the power that it had there when GCU had all the time and resources in the world to pick whatever the hell they wanted into it. It was picked R2, so they had all the time in the world to think of the answer. They came up with their answer and they were dead wrong. So there really is, you know, I think as much as the Seraphine was the MVP of the previous game, was really strong, and it shaped how the game was played, this K'Sante is going to shape how the series is played.
Yeah, it certainly is. And I'm just thinking about the picks that Chris G likes to come through, and it's hard enough for anything to really try and make a dent into this K'Sante, but if you don't have something that is ranged, maybe something like a Rumble or something that can flex a lot of early AP power, it's tough to make a dent in this, and I imagine the ban is going to have to be the most effective solution against it. Now, as we suggested before the break, potentially the Xin Zhao can go and make place for the K'Sante ban. We have seen the same 2 Taliyah and Hui bans against FaZeman, which we love to see. And now that UOE has that strategy locked in, I want to see if they are going to change anything at all, because their first 3 have been the same both times. It was all about their own picks that were the pivot, and that was enough for them last time.
Yeah, and we see it here exactly what we were expecting. The K'Sante ban on 3, Xin Zhao is now on the table for Arcanaga. Comfort pick, something really to play, and something that in competitive in 5v5 is very, very strong. And ultimate, which means you cannot take damage from sources outside of a ring, is crazy and is very impactful in these fights. Now, I think the real question is what was GCU doing here? Is it still the Nautilus? Because I would argue, and it was me who, you know, sort of said we were on the fence about who would have been the MVP for UAE for GCU, sorry, last game, and I think it was still CWL, because even though they were struggling a lot, he was still landing the hooks, and all the good plays that came from that game was on the Nautilus. But we're not going to see that. We're going to see the Maokai get taken away from him.
Yep, the answer being the Zeri, so Redpin happy to take that one again. Yeah, I think when the Karthus wasn't on the screen, they were having a much better time in the 2v2. And a quick Ornn lock-in. So the K'Sante denied, but they're not delaying the pick for Tuma anymore. They're not going for the counter. They're just going for a beefy tank that can try to deal with it. But I must say, I know that Chris G can play Camille. I know that he can play Trundle. I know that he can play Akali. There's a lot of picks, I think, that could take this Ornn apart.
Yeah, that was my first thought there. The second Ornn was picked in, I'm saying, please tell me Chris G's confidence is not shaken so much from last game that the Camille could get locked in, because that is a champion which does better early, mid, and late than Ornn, and is a real comfort pick for Chris G, a really, really strong pick. So I don't know how it works with their draft. They might not pick it simply because, you know, it doesn't work with the idea that has been put forward by Helvenix in what they're wanting to do. Aatrox, also a fantastic pick here. Denies in the early game. Akali, also a fantastic pick here.
Yeah, there's just
and
so
that
many
is going to
options,
be the
right?
ones locked in. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the key. It's just that it leaves Chris G open to try and pick whatever he wants to bully Tumai, whereas the K'Sante is kind of uniquely anti-bully in that top side. It's just so self-sufficient. So we need to see Tumai absorb this pressure of the Chris G Akali, which we know is very, very impactful, and not fall too far behind. Now, it's okay if your Ornn falls a little far behind, sure, but you can't let the Akali get fed. That's the key, as the answer in the R3 position is the Neeko. So they're dropping this back, presumably for Dr. Deathcat, but they do, of course, have that flexibility to Phasmin that they use so well in Game 2.
Yeah, I think this Ornn pick, you can see what the angle is. It's K'Sante was banned, but we want to still carry forward the game plan. We think Tumai is comfortable in tank, so let's pick Ornn here. But I think, obviously, we'll have to see how the game plays out, but this feels like a really rough bit of draft prep, because if you know anything about Chris G's champ pool, you know that they have at least 3, if not like 5, great answers to Ornn that they are comfortable on, like every single one of them. And it's something that the team's comfortable playing around. So obviously, I don't want to say too much too early. The game and the draft could go completely differently, but that feels pretty tricky early on, as we see the Kayn ban from UOE, followed by the Graves, fantastic, and Poppy and Vi are going to be the bans from GCU.
I do like the Graves takeaway. It definitely seemed like there was a lot more impact from Helvenix directly on the map, as well as being very ahead in his own right, and the Vi ban sticking around for every single game so far in GCU's second rotation. Now, the Jinx was the answer to Zeri, so it does have a lot more range. There's a lot less onus on it to be aggressive in the laning phase. It can sit back and try and match the Jinx as a late game threat, so maybe less pressure on Lewis and CWL in the bot side, and we'll see if the Maokai is going to go into jungle or support, depending on how the last few picks round out. Now, the Xin Zhao was left open, and that's enough for the Xin Zhao to be picked. Arcanog is going to get the ultimate comfort here in the jungle.
Yeah, they have decided, it's clear from, we can see from the draft that their draft prep has said, okay, whilst we've been banning this previously because it's comfort, not only have they left it open, they've clearly got a strategy in mind, because letting it get through both phases of bans shows that they've got something in mind. They're cooking in the background a way to deal with this. One thing I do want to mention, whilst I'm not sure that it's going to happen, is the Akali and the Maokai is also still a flex option here. We could see that be jungle support. There was previously a flex in mid, but the Lissandra there for lockdown onto the Zeri. This is a really good answer and a comfort pick for Crawford. So this is, I mean, I think within this draft, it's pretty clear what this is wanting to do. It's you point and click on Zeri and then you kill her. Like that's the answer.
I am glad that we have dropped the Orianna here. The Lissandra is a lot more safe, does have her own survival tools, can get away from the wall if the pressure is still there, and we have shifted somewhat. Well, we're still kind of a farming jungler, at least in the first few levels. Kha'Zix is, again, not an impactful ganking threat. I mean, we said the same about Graves, and there is certainly an angle for Graves, and Kha'Zix does have that, but it's mostly just raw damage. But it is the assassin archetype for Helvenix. This is the archetype that he goes back to time and time again, and we should be expecting an explosive performance out of here. The Vex was banned in Game 1, or Game 2, I should say, has been left up for Phasmin, so there is still a lot of aggressive playmaking there in the mid lane for Medinburgh, but I really like the adaptations on both sides here. I think we're going to see a very different game in Game 3.
Yeah, I mean, this is what I really wanted, right? Is we had a slight deviation in draft from Game 1 to Game 2. We had more so on the Ember side, but right now this is something that feels almost completely fresh. Even though we are seeing a lot of champions that we've seen before, Zeri, Jinx, Maokai, Akali, we're seeing them in a completely different light, different positions. And I'm really excited for just how it's played. I really like both drafts. Neither of them stand out to me immediately as being like, okay, this is really, you know, one's clearly winning here. I really like the last minute Kha'Zix, putting the Maokai, as we said, down in support. That's probably something they'd be planning the whole time. The Akali, like we say, is almost definitely going top into the Ornn. I think the Vex pick is also very good, because even though it's not laning into the Akali, late game she's really going to struggle into it. and you add on top of that the Nico and the Ornn CC that can come through, it's really hard for her to fight. So these are two, I would say, very evenly matched compositions.
Yes, there's a very different dynamic across most of these lanes for sure. FaZe has the range advantage in mid, but Lissandra can survive with the all-in very easily with the ult, so it's probably going to be more about the roaming in terms of who gets the effective roams off, who is skirmishing better. Now, the Xin Zhao would be favored early on in the skirmishing. This is a 2v2 that I would probably favor UOE for in the early laning phase. The Kha'Zix really needs time to get some items and needs to be maximizing the isolation and the kind of delaying tactics they can use in the fights to get Qs off. So I think mid jungle should favor UOE in this game, and that was very, very pivotal for them in game number 2. Top lane, as we said before, I feel like ChrisG might have a bit of a field day up here. He has a big fat Ornn to just punch over and over again, and is going to potentially get pretty fed on the Akali. And then the bot side, who knows, honestly. The Maokai has a lot of zone control, has a lot of brush control, helps against the Nico a bit. But Deathcap's Nico was pretty darn good, man. And the Zeri for Redbin was very good too. So it feels like they are just sticking with what works. And we need to see GCU prove that they can actually deal with that duo.
Yeah, and I think the name of proof also goes on to Tumai in the top lane with the Ornn. You mentioned how ChrisG might just have a field day up here. And what Tumai needs to show if he wants his team to do a lot better in this series and to struggle a lot less is show that he's not just a K'Sante OTP, show that the complete nullification and honestly, obviously the solo kills that you got in the top lane, that's not just limited to this one champion. I can also hold my own against a very good player. That ChrisG is a very good top laner. Hold my own. You're not looking to necessarily win this lane. You're looking to survive and be that good late game tank for your team and show that he can be a vital asset to his team in that situation. I think this top matchup will carve quite a big part of how this series goes, especially as we go into, because we're guaranteed at least one more game after this. How this top lane goes, I actually think has a far bigger impact on future drafts and future games than any other lane in this game.
Yeah, it has been a very interesting dynamic up there. A lot of power picks being traded back and forth, the K'Sante ban coming and going, and from the other lanes, it seems like there's a bit more freedom and a bit more flexibility there. There's not really as much focus, but the top lane there is very clearly a punch and counter punch, and yeah, the UOE stepping away from that voluntarily is interesting to take the kind of blind pick or the counter pick power, I should say, away from Tumai having Midnight the favorite pick there. So let's see if UOE can unlock FaZe in the same way. Let's see if Tumai can handle the gauntlet that he has thrown down with this blind Ornn. Let's see if he's ready to step up in that role. And then I want to see as well from Arcanog on the Xin Zhao. It's been banned away from game 1 and 2. It's his most played pick. This is the game for you to step up and get in the face of Heavenix for me and really try and step up and take some dominance in this jungle. Last time was a very proficient Maokai jungle game, but it's a very supportive role you can play as Maokai jungle. You've got to be on the front lines as Xin Zhao.
Yeah, his power really does come in, obviously across the game, but especially in the early skirmishes where you just have so much damage with the heal, the way your kit works together with reducing cooldowns. Early skirmishes are favored for Xin Zhao, and I think pretty much every matchup, but especially this Kha'Zix matchup. If you can get pressure in your lanes, you should be able to exact that pressure directly onto Kha'Zix, force him away from camps or his own jungle, force him away from objectives early. I want to see more of the game 2 vibes that we had where we were on the Maokai and we were able to control the game as we get into this game 3.
Okie doke, game number 3, everybody. Both teams won a piece, both teams fighting to take the lead and move to match point first in the League of Legends Grand Final. Another dynamic shift in the draft, this time from both sides. To see who is ready, who's more prepared, and who is more warmed up in the gameplay side. UOE certainly shown that they fixed their execution issues from game number 1, and GCU, we know they have the raw talent, we know they have the hands to step forward, and again, they've got some key comfort, especially on that top and jungle, as UOE with another aggressive move into the jungle. This got them 2 free flashes level 1 last time, but GCU have learned the lesson. They've got the ward down, they've backed right off, and they'll know exactly what's going on here.
Yeah, ward for ward trade, essentially. That ward does give them a lot of vision. I'm interested that after, I believe they did see all 5 on that ward, we didn't see Lewis stepping up in any way to get some counter vision. I would have maybe liked to have seen that, but it's probably just a game of inches. It's not the end of the world to any degree to say. And what I really liked you picking up there on the sort of the technical execution on these champions, what you find a lot in tournaments for all manner of games. But especially at sort of, again, not your Division 1, 2 levels, but at the lower level of competition, is you can see when people get into finals, when people get into stressful situations, they get cold hands. They want to play easy champions that they feel comfortable on, that they don't worry about when they're playing. But both of these teams have shown we're happy to play the execution characters. We're happy to play the characters where the onus is on us.
Yeah, 100%. As we've managed to get through to the lane without any flashes being blown, no extra stress added here. You can see deep vision on both of those top side buffs for both the jungle side, so there will be knowledge there as both the jungles are starting on the bot side and they will arrive at top lane. Now, last time when we did this, they didn't actually end up doing anything about the top lane. We'll see if that's going to change anytime here, or if there will be a better angle to play for on the map, as pretty much all three lanes have a solid way to follow up on the gank. Akali's the only one that doesn't have some CC to offer, but mid and bot both have plenty of ways to start a fight if needed.
Yeah, even what Akali lacks in CC, if she lands her Shuriken flip, the damage is absolutely there to follow it up. And Xin Zhao with the knockup could maybe even be enough if she manages to chip the Ornn down, as we're expecting her to. So this game could be very, very explosive in the early game. We want it to be, like we mentioned in the draft. We want Arcanug to be forcing this game to be explosive. But looking at the minimap, it looks like League Professor might be the one making the early moves, as we see him in the enemy side of jungle.
The vision, he has the knowledge there, and Arcanug is not going to drop too low, but Kha'Zix's going to be there, drops out the Q, big damage from the Electrocute already in the Xin Zhao. There's probably got to be a flash burn, but there's no point. It's just first blood for Heavenix.
Yeah, the ward did not give enough advance notice there. Unfortunately, Arcanug had used spells on the buff, so wasn't able to turn that around in any way, and no, mid was not able to move up aggressively. We keep talking about how champions, the Helvenix plays, need to be passive in the early game, and we're just wrong every time.
He's just, when you have that much knowledge, when you've got the pre-planning in place, you can take advantage of those windows that normally champions would be afraid to do so, and Heavenix is absolutely the man to do so. Now he's got double buffs, first blood, denies Xin Zhao those buffs as well, and is going to be getting off to a very quick start here. He's going to be getting to level 6 well ahead of schedule, and then we'll start to see this Kha'Zix really doing some damage.
Yeah, I do like somewhat of the attempt here. I think the thought is good from Arcanug trying and get vision, but I would argue with the timing that he came into your jungle there and the number of camps, if he was counting camps properly, he should realistically know that his bot side was empty there. So a slight misplay, I would argue, from Enbra, but not going to be the end of the world. Going to try and get something down onto Lissandra, but she's just going to blip out. That's probably what we're going to be seeing in a lot of these mid ganks.
Yeah, oh, lovely route onto the Jinx right there. Big burst from Red Pin, and Dr. Deathcap finds the kill. We saw the premonition of this before, where Maokai lost the flash, and UOE do still have a shining light on the map, and it is that bot lane.
Yeah, a complete turnaround from game 1, where they were getting 2v2 killed left, right, and center. And now, as we see a play possibly going onto the top side.
Knock up onto Christie, who doesn't have the ultimate, doesn't have the extra tools to get away, drops the Shroud. Now how can UOE manage this one? Will they let him get away? The Shuriken is there, flash and a flashback with the Shuriken flip from Chris G, but Arcanug tags him, and there's Tumai with the W. They'll gift the kill to the Xin Zhao. It's fast feet for Akali, but not enough to keep them alive.
Really good attempt there, burning all the resources. Absolutely would have had to anyway, and it did look like it could possibly have been an escape, but just doesn't quite dodge that Xin Zhao W. The slow is just too much, and that is going to be a kill traded back for Edinburgh here in the top lane, as the game is already heating up. One thing I want to note is all the kills that we've seen in this game were down in the bot lane has not been due to the jungle pressure.
Oh my word.
Damage!
Dude, that is level 4. It's level 4. Nico did most of that herself, for goodness sake. That is a crazy advantage to have on the map right now. Fazeman is still in mid. Just got level 6 as well, and Heavenix does not quite have the ultimate ready. Deathcap and Redpin really want to get the damage down here. They're not going to be able to steal the dragon away. Arcanug is around the corner. Redpin on the flank position as CWL abandoned in the pit. The rest of the team will have to try and escape. League Professor holds onto the flash, does get the dragon, but you can see the respect being paid.
Yeah, the 1-for-1 trade. GCU did get the dragon, they lose the kill, and they're down in gold, which, again, this is a similar position to what we were in last game, where they tried to trade objectives and they tried not to mine the kills, but it just wasn't enough, and Edinburgh ended up taking that game away from them. So we'll see how GCU try and answer back, try and make the difference from their last game. We've seen really good movement from Yui's mid laner here, Fazeman coming up to this objective. As we see a fight could maybe be breaking out here.
On the flank, the pincer is there for GCU, but Fazeman has the ultimate for the combo. They get out to Chris G. That could be the resets. Crawford is in deep. Doesn't have much mana to speak of. Finds the root. But they find the ultimate. Fazeman catches it onto Heavenix. And there's the Vex resets. Pivotal for UOE to take that fight around the Grubs. And now they've got even more gold to play with on this top side.
Really well played there from them. Chris G going in. I'm going to be completely honest. I thought he was dead way earlier than he was, but he kept it alive, and that was all they needed. The engagement was not enough to take him down. So let's get a look back at that fight. So Grub smited away, the ultimate in, and look at how long they managed to survive and how much damage they got out in that time. And the ults coming through, just smacking them left, right, and center. A 3-for-0. It ends up being really well played by the side of Edinburgh.
I was looking at the damage that Kha'Zix was taking just from the Ornn, right? It wasn't even in that close range of everyone else, but Kha'Zix got chunked down to where the point where the Vex ult can come in and get the execute. Very well played by Edinburgh. Now Heavenix maybe looks for the counterpunch on bot side. They'll spot the Nico, who's only level 5. Does have the flash, but the ult and flash ready for the Kha'Zix. The clone is out there, but he correctly guesses the right one. Lovely flash though from Deathcap. Holds the summoner as long as he needs and will not give the kill over.
Well played there. Unfortunately, does have to burn his flash. Was positioned slightly aggressively, so it's still technically a mistake. However, you know, to get out there and to not end up dying to the gank is still very valuable. So we're getting ourselves here 8 minutes in, but we're already seeing a big gold lead, 2.5k developing for the University of Edinburgh. A lot of that coming from this top fight. And we said we needed to see Arcanog perform this game, and we needed to see Tumai perform on a pick that isn't Cassante. And look what's happening. We got bounties already on Mr. Arcanog, and Tumai has been a large contributing factor to the fights and the gold that his team has.
Yeah, absolutely. Even after that disastrous level 3, right? After dying at your own red buff, as Arcanog manages to come back with a 3-1-2 score with the support of the team. Edinburgh is not one player. It is not one win condition. It is a very strong team unit, and that has what has re-stabilized them after that rough early. Fazeman is there and doesn't get the fear onto Kha'Zix though, and now doesn't really have any options left. Flashes away, but it's an easy trade for Heavenix to take it down.
That is the power of the Kha'Zix on an isolated target. There was nowhere that Fazeman could move to get that isolated passive off of him, and the damage that comes through is incredible. Obviously, very well played. League Professor managing to dodge the fear there, and then using the flash to chase down. Very, very well played. But that's such a tricky position, and really, this is what this Kha'Zix is going to do. And I've spoken a lot when talking about, I actually think Kha'Zix is a very strong pick in certain comps, just because Kha'Zix makes you want to be forced to play together, but with Akali damage that can come across with Q, and Crawford also being able to deal massive AoE damage, Jinx rockets as well, that means if they are playing together to avoid the Kha'Zix, they're playing into the rest of your team's win condition. So the value that is going to be brought here by this pick is tenfold.
Yeah, 100%. Incentivize the split up, and as soon as you do, as soon as you're on your own, the Kha'Zix comes out of the woodwork, and you're just donezo it. It does mean that the gold is solely going over to Heavenix with this kind of play, right? So he does have to do the carrying himself, but Fazeman, not phased by that previous play, is ready and waiting on the bot side with ultimate. Lewis has no flash. Once this wave goes in, this is surely good night for the bot side. Lewis is caught, Lewis is feared, and there's the easy follow-up by the rest of UOE. Deathcap and Zeri ready to follow it up. They will lose Red Pin in the process, as the tanking is not quite properly juggled, but they'll still get plates and they'll still get plenty of advantage in bot lane.
Yeah, absolutely worth it. As Red Pin, obviously, you're slightly unhappy as the ADC that you got a bunch of assists there and it didn't result in what you wanted. Oh, Fazeman taking a chunk of damage, not quite going to be enough though. You're not too happy about just getting assists, but it's absolutely worth it. Look at the wave they're missing. Look at the plates your team is claiming. That is massive advantage for University of Edinburgh as the gold lead develops to 4k. As we're going to see this. Yeah, the fight coming out really clean here. Red Pin, I think there is an angle where they can not take tower damage here. I think it was perhaps just a bit of a miscommunication. Ah, there you go. It's the Maokai route. So well played there by CWL to try and trade something back. But at the end of the day, Edinburgh's still going to be very happy.
And we did see in the picture that Heavenix almost went down in the bot side before this dragon and has had to retreat all the way back to base to heal up, leaving Arcanine with a 3 dragon take here. So still managing to rebuff the Kha'Zix. He's not necessarily getting all the kills he ever wanted. He does have the Youmuu's done now, but he has to respect the damage that can be fired back to him, the catch available from the Neeko, from the Vex, from the Ornn even. You know, there's a lot of threat on this Kha'Zix pick in the moment to go in.
Yeah, I think contrary to the Graves pick that we saw in game 1, where Graves benefits from the armor that's on his E and being able to build very heavy damage items, but still be not tanky, but able to take a punch and deal it back, basically. But Kha'Zix is quite to the contrary, where you're needing to dish out the damage and try and not take it back yourself. Weave in and out of invisibility and bushes to make sure you're optimizing your damage as well. So it will be a lot of the burden of execution is on Heavenix here, but of course, if you want the burden of execution to be on any player on GCU, you want it to be on them.
Yeah, we want that burden there. The ones to take it as now comes into that mid lane, pops for Youmuu's, looking for an angle onto this area right here. He's gonna have to jump over this wall, Crawford. Potentially have to go in the flash into CWL, and the burst is massive. More respect needed as the Zeri falls quickly. Arcanug is ready to get the counter punch, but a lovely knockback onto Deathcap's ultimate keeps the Maokai alive, but now FaZe is coming in from the flank, drops the ultimate, can't find out to Maokai, gets a flash out of Lewis, and there will be no kills for Edinburgh, but they have to keep GCO on their toes.
A bit of a whiff there from FaZeman, but still manages to come through GCU. Very well played on that. Arcanug almost getting something back, but just not quite managed to get it. As we pan over to him being cut down in his own jungle. Not quite sure what happened there, but one can assume Kha'Zix on an isolated target did what Kha'Zix does in that situation.
But just look at the scoreboard, man. It is all on Kha'Zix right now. 4-1 with the CS lead. Every other lane is down. We can look at Tumai here. We were worried about how this matchup was going to go, and it was Akali favored before, but once the team fights that came through, the skirmishes that got that extra gold for the Ornn, then he gets the Kaenic Rooken, and he's kind of chilling in this lane right now. Even with the Liandry's on the Akali, I don't think there's really a way to break this guy open.
Yeah, no, not at all. That burn is going to be tickling him at most. However, if we look into the top side here, we do see a bit of aggressive positioning from Dr. Deathcap. Might find him. Yeah, immediately has to flash out. Redfin rooted up. The damage coming out. Kha'Zix needs to be position around it. The ultimate comes through. Redfin manages to find one. The damage going over, but it's not quite enough.
He just takes it, ghosts away, and League Professor had already used that E. Doesn't have another way in. And this area just kind of ruins CWL, as we saw in topside. A cheeky solo kill for Tumai on the Ornn. Just as we were praising him, the man powers up and takes Chris G down.
We said here in the draft that Tumai needs to show up on this pick to show that it's not just the K'Sante. He can't just be dealt with one ban. And my god, is he showing it. Now, it's up to Arcanug to also follow in on that as we get here up to the solo kill. Let's see what happens. Knock up dodge, the W comes through, and oh my god, that damage is criminal. The Alchemist, tank, assassin, supports, whatever other tank
Deep. He's very deep right here. A shutdown no secured by Crawford, and CWL's got to escape. Arcanug completely on his own. The bot lane too late to support. And UOE with an aggressive position in the jungle does not count on the collapse.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we didn't quite see the start of that play there. Hopefully we can in a replay. But my guess is going to be that that was just perhaps a bit of an over-ambitious Vex ult followed up by the Xin Zhao, and they just got themselves picked up.
Yeah, I mean, as much as the gold is definitely localized on Heavenix right now, the rest of GCU have hit their one-item spikes, and they've got buttons to press, they've got damage to deal. As Chris G rotates into the mid lane, we'll push Redpin and Deathcat back. And that is the one factor that we need to keep an eye on here. This bot lane that was so pivotal last time, that is avoiding most of these scuffles and needs to be the late game win condition. If Zeri can escape the Kha'Zix, they could be the thing that really turns the fights around.
Yeah, I mean, the power here, while a lot of the gold is on Chris G, a lot of these champions, especially, I want to say Jinx, like, regardless of if she's getting a huge gold injection or she's just farming up, she's still going to get very strong. Items are always going to be very impactful of just how hard she scales. I mean, look at the damage that she's able to deal out to Dr. Deathcap here in the mid lane.
Drops the ultimate as well, really trying to push that Neeko back, and the recall will be pulled. Kha'Zix still around the mid lane, Chris G and Tumai back to farming up again topside, while FaZeman and Crawford moving down to the bot lane. So the slow scaling game, whether if their picks can be avoided by Edinburgh, they do have good scaling, but on the other side, GCU very much have scaling threats of their own, so I'm not really sure who that favors as Redpin maybe doesn't expect the Kha'Zix out of the brush, can slide over the wall, but there's Lewis ready and waiting, gets the flash away, Kha'Zix is there and the root barely doesn't connect. Faceman's in with the ultimate, he's gonna find the Maokai at least as Dr. Deathcap is hunting for Lewis even more. Faceman gets the ult reset off this one, but cannot find any more. It looks like Tumai is going aggressive in top lane again, and it's another solo kill as Faceman catches out Lewis, and Edinburgh clap back in mid, and there's a dragon waiting to be taken.
That's the kind of advantage we wanted to be seeing. That was incredibly played there by Enbro. What looked like a good pick there from Lead Professor, managing to get the kill on Zeri in the tower. Because she managed to survive the solo and make them burn so many resources, Enbro were able to pick it up on the other side. And I mean, do we even need to talk about the Tumai kill, solo kill in the top lane? He has proved his value on this team.
Yep, absolutely. It was a gambit that they called with the blind Ornn, but it has paid off hugely. Even the Chris G Akali, the former Great Gatsu Akali, cannot do the job against Tumai. The guy is a brick wall up there, and GCU are going to have to come up with another solution for this, potentially in the last game of the series in game number 4, because UOE are looking very, very comfortable here. 5,000 gold ahead at the 17.5 minute mark with the Dragon lead. They are set up for success.
Yeah, I mean, especially considering I would argue that their comp is going to be a lot easier to play as we get into these fights. You know, you got the big tanky Ornn in the front line, Zeri and Vex who are able to deal damage within their own respects. Vex with the fears to be able to keep them off her, and the Neeko game plan is very clear in team fights, whereas playing around the Kha'Zix, playing around Akali is a lot harder. So I think these fights are going to be a lot easier for Edinburgh. And now the ball really is in Glasgow's court in terms of having to make a move and trying to find an advantage in this game. But Heavenix, that's exactly what he's looking to do.
What the guys built for coming in with the edge tonight. Big damage onto the Zeri, forces the dash over the wall, knocking into Lewis is there. But already, Leech Professor's found the kill. Deathcap has an ulti as well. They've got to get this Kha'Zix down, but Arcanine can't quite find it. There it is with the Ignite as the TPs are coming in. A clap back from Crawford. Tumai is there with the knockup, looking for the ult onto Lewis. They get the flash out of the Jinx, and now Vex doesn't have that tool. Ornn desperately scrambling back to the tower in the 4v2 scenario. There's a fear on the line for Vex. Can maybe look for the punish, waiting for the Akali to go in. There's big damage, but the Ornn just gets shut down.
We said Glasgow needed to make the play to come back into this game, and they just did. League Professor, Heavenix, God of Assassins, whatever you want to call him, that was the play. They did find themselves going down, but it doesn't matter because the amount of space, the amount of time, the amount of damage that they dealt in that fight was incredible. Beautifully played, and Glasgow are firmly back in this game regardless of what that goal is.
When Caledonia are on the same page, when they are all following in line behind the plays that Heavenix creates, that is when they look in their best form, and that's the form they were in that fight. That is exactly what they needed. Let's take another closer look at it.
I mean, just look at this positioning from Heavenix. He gets the Ghost Blade down, goes onto Redpin, bursts him for well over half of his health, jumps over the wall, finishes him off, and while he is going to die to this Pop Blossom, the damage that follows up there afterwards is more than enough in the time that when he goes down, his team is able to follow up and wipe the board.
Just the lack of damage when you don't have the Zeri there. The DPS missing over that long fight is very visible, and especially for Faceman, if he doesn't get the Vex ult, he doesn't have the resets. Lewis was able to flash away from it. The Vex loses, 60% of the potency in a long team fight there. So UOE struggling in that last fight, still with the gold lead, still with good scaling, still with win conditions to play for, but they need to try and deal with this Kha'Zix. They need to try and be on a lookout for him, as Chris G could be the target right here. Tumai looking for the knockup, Deathcap rotating through. The Neeko has to be scared of this Akali. There's big damage. Pop Blossom gets the catch, there's the stun, there's a root, and the CC chain is just sublime from UOE. They get the flash away from the Akali. Out comes the Ornhorn, and the Ram will stampede over the Akali, with Neeko picking up the kill.
Yeah, the damage was just too much. The CC was chained really well. Thought maybe the Christie could come out, but then the pull of the Forge God was more than enough to follow it up. So While Glasgow are still absolutely back in this game, League Professor is at the point of strength now, where if Zeri exists on the screen with him, she is most likely dead. But it's still so hard to find an angle, and especially when you're getting picked in the side lanes, it's going to be a really tricky game to play as the gold lead extends back to 4K for URE.
That's it. In that last game, Edinburgh got so much value by having that lead and just pushing the lanes in, taking aggressive positions, using the Maokai ultimate to push the enemy back and get so much objective gold, right? We're seeing them get a bit of it here, but doing the same thing in this game feels like you are just asking for the Kha'Zix fight. You're asking for the Maokai ultimate from CWL, from the TP from Lissandra. It feels so much riskier for Edinburgh to play up and push lanes in than in the last game that it's hard for them to actually push the lead they have, and we can see the firing back from GCU. They're going to be the ones taking position around this dragon pit first.
As we see, Arcanar getting engaged on is going to be isolated.
Gets the ult out, gets the flash away. He's going to keep himself alive for now. There's the TP out of Chris G. Well, that's the Edinburgh jungler completely separated, and this dragon is a sure thing for GCU now.
Damage does come through, and it's good enough for the kill. As we see, oh, engages on the other side. Oh my god,
got one. Oh my god, Nico's going in. Maybe it's not a sure thing. Kha'Zix is going to find it, but surely they will get massacred on the backside. Christian looking for an angle, but the rest of UOE are staying together. They are staying strong, and they'll pick up 2 kills for themselves at the cost of 1 Infernal.
Yeah, the dragon being traded back is good, keeps the enemy off soul point, but 2 kills and what's likely going to be mid-push, perhaps even a conversion into a Baron, is not going to be worth it in the long run, as yep, Ember is starting.
Love this, it's decisive from them, and they need to keep the momentum. If you need to get that siege feeling safer, get the Baron on deck, and then you can stand further back, you can drop these for safety wards. But Kha'Zix is still on the field. He has Flash, he has Leap, he has a Blast Cone, he has everything he needs to flip it. League Professor, time to steal it away, time to keep this game in your favor. Are you the true 1v9 jungler that we say you ought to be? He goes in, and he steals the Baron! He couldn't have told a better story, but Edinburgh are looking to fight back once again. Yes, they will lose the objective for the second time, but not without payment in blood.
Change your pronouns. I'm changing my pronouns to he, because I'm never going to be him. Oh my god, that couldn't have been written better in a storybook. Now, the rest of your teammates dying when you're the one going for the steal, perhaps not quite worth it. But yeah, being able to take away the Baron there, getting it down to only 2 people is rough, but you still have the Baron on board, even if you did lose quite a lot for it. Let's take a look at this smite. Hopefully we get it in slow-mo as he jumps over the wall. Jumps in, and I'm going to picture it. Yeah. Oh, down to 110. Oof. Tight
the Q
smite. Yeah.
And like, because even the fact that he has an Edge of Night there, like, means that he doesn't get caught up, doesn't take too much damage, doesn't get CC'd. Everything came together for him in that moment. He took everything he had to get the kill as Deathcap has caught his way onto Lewis. This Jinx is losing the Flash on cooldown in this game, it feels like.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not counting your minions, you're in trouble in this game. And for both ADCs, funnily enough, it feels like if you are not paying attention at every single moment and you are not fully locked in, you let your guard down for 1 second, there's a Kha'Zix on top of you, there's a Nico hiding in a minion, whatever it is, being an ADC in this game is a very scary reality.
Yeah, it's a tough season already to be in that bot lane role, but this game in particular, my word, it's pretty spooky stuff. But now, the Baron that should have been Edinburgh's ticket to keep their sieges safe and allow them to push the advantage has now become Glasgow Caledonia's way of stalling this game out further and giving them free map position, free time to farm, as they are even on Dragons. They are in just as good a position to fight for Soul as Edinburgh is.
Yeah, I mean, this is not the even game state that I was expecting, you know, sort of maybe 5-10 minutes ago from the way that the fights have been played, but it's just been so fantastically done from League Professor. Just the amount of advantage that he's provided for his team is just incredible. It's fantastic. And seeing just how well, again, I do want to highlight, you know, not just how well he's playing, but also how well Glasgow is playing around their powerhouse to ensure that he can pop off and ensure that when they might die in a play, the rest of the team is still there following up, getting the kills.
Yeah, absolutely. They're trying to open the window for him and trying to follow up on the advantages he creates, and they've done a decent job at it. But Heavenix is the one with the gold, he's the one with the objectives, and he's the one who's going to have to keep finding these critical plays. Now, Zeri's got both summoners back, Phasmin has the flash. Basically, all of the members of UOE have the flash ready now, except for the Neeko, and we're starting to see the Zhonyas coming through as well for the Vex, for the Neeko. They're going to be able to protect themselves just a little longer, and that's going to make Heavenix's job even harder.
Yeah, I mean, the target here has to be the Zeri. I'm sure, of course, that Heavenix is looking at this scoreboard and saying, right, okay, well, you've just, well, you have made my job a pain. You've made my target selection a lot easier. I know who I need to go on. I need to find my way onto the Zeri here. Or I need to get your Zhonya's burnt.
Maokai is used, the Professor pops the ultimate as well, maybe looking but doesn't see the good angle there. Phasmin on the flank, can they pop the shield? Doesn't get it away, saves the ultimate as well for now, and the Edge of Night survives for Kha'Zix, so he does still have that coverage on the engage. Dragon now 25 seconds away, and I think Edinburgh might be the ones ending up with control of this pit, as instead GCU are going for the mid wave.
Yeah, just understanding that contesting an objective tit for tat is not going to end up working here. But 10 seconds on this Dragon. Yeah, Edinburgh in complete control of the positioning. Heavenix trying to find his way into the jungle, hopefully unspotted. We do see a bit of a cheeky play here, maybe from Edinburgh. Yeah, looks to go for the fight instead.
Phasmin pops, loses the ult on the Kha'Zix, pops the shield away. They're looking for Lewis, who has no flash. Tumai gets the knockup with a long range or an ultimate, but the fireback is there. But the bot blaster from Dr. Deathcap, another wonderful follow-up from Neeko, and Edinburgh are piling into this jungle corridor, taking down members left and right. They've removed the Kha'Zix, they've removed the Jinx. 4 members of Caledonia die. They wait and find the window, and they punish massively.
4 for 1, beautifully fought, identifying that, hey, we don't need to trade objectives here. We don't need to lose our mid tier 2 for this Dragon. We can win the fight and get the Dragon making their bed and sleeping in it. Well played there from University of Edinburgh, finding every advantage they can on the map.
Stunning fight from them once again, man. I love the full range ult from Tumai and Phasmin. Even though he once again loses the Vex ultimate on that Kha'Zix, does manage to get the shield off, gets the reset and gets the kills later. It's just sublime from Edinburgh, man. Now they're on Infernal Soul Point, and that damage is going to be massive from them if they can get it. The Dragon up in 35, but for now, let's take a look at the replay.
We can see they just position in this bush, wait for Glasgow Caledonian to overstep. The ultimate gets lost there, and yet Tumai, knowing what his job is, calling the Forge God across all of them. Another beautiful ultimate from Dr. Deathcap. It feels like they don't know what any less than a 2-man ultimate is. I don't think they've ever gone for one in their life. As Crawford finally gets taken down here as well for the end of the fight. Incredibly played.
Deathcap is violently allergic to a 2-man Neeko ult, it seems like. Absolutely could not contion it right now. This Neeko support is becoming hugely pivotal, and they managed to they push CWL off the Nautilus. They push him onto the Maokai by a shift in their draft priority now. We have to start thinking about Dr. Deathcap's Neeko support as an option. How are we going to deal with this as Caledonian? It's got the range to deal with the tank engages that are CWL's bread and butter, and it has the damage to throw back in his face as well.
Yeah, I mean, what is the answer? You can try and assassinate them, but they've got the Zhonyas up. And add to all of this stress that Glasgow Caledonian is currently under, we've got Ornn items coming in on the major targets now. We've got, what's that, 3 across? So we've got the Infinity Edge upgrade on Zeri and the Malignance upgrade on Vex. That is going to be huge for the damage profile as we see the damage. Oh my god. The run-in, but
for it. Indel's been rooted up, he has the Crescent Guard for now, but they're getting inside it, he's taking some damage, but in goes Dr. Deathcap again with the Death Blossom, and Tumai is there for the knockup, misses the Ornn ultimate, but flashes it anyway, but still finds the knockup angle onto 2, even with a missed R, this Ornn gets the job done, and Edinburgh continue to chase down mid lane. It's 3 more kills, Lewis under fire, they could look for inhibs, they could look for more.
Edinburgh have demonstrated that they do not even need ultimates to win this game. All they need is Dr. Deathcap's ultimates. They cannot keep getting away with this. That was yet another multi-man ultimate to change the flow of the fight. And it doesn't matter that the Call of the Forge Gods misses. I love that from Tumai to still be able to identify. I missed the spell, but it doesn't matter. The knockup's coming in. Let's take a look at this again. So, I was worried there. League Professor. There's a Zeri in the target, but manages to get out over the wall. Xin Zhao getting hit up again. The ultimate buying them so much space. And then Dr. Deathcap again coming in. 3-man ultimate. The Call of the Forge God misses, but you realizes that 2 targets are close to the wall. Gets the kills going down. And now this is so much pressure from Edinburgh. They are in the driver's seat in this game.
The Zeri just being able to dash over the wall and escape so easily from the Akali, from the Kha'Zix. It feels almost impossible to play for these assassins that Caledonia have gone for their bread and butter picks. The matchup for Edinburgh is feeling so favored right now as CWL caught in his jungle. Doesn't really feel like GCU's jungle right now, but he is going to go down very, very quickly, and the Baron is bare. Heavenix pulled out the steal of a lifetime before. Now he doesn't have the flash. He has the ultimate. He's got to find this now, or I think we're just going to game 4.
Yeah, gets spotted on the ward, so has to find their way out. Knows that they're on vision here, but also knows that they have to try and find the way in, and yet they're just getting zoned out of it.
Yeah, excellently played by FaZe there, zoning away with the threat of the fear. Throws the ultimate for good measure, doesn't connect it. But we can see in bot lane, ChrisG found a kill. The Jinx Rocket wasn't quite timed well enough to steal the Baron away. And UOA will return back to their map, now finally wearing the Baron buff. They've got a minute before the Infernal. They should be able to get this map entirely under their control and then peel back for the Soul.
Yeah, I mean, I think this Soul is the game for the University of Edinburgh. This will put them in such a strong position. Yet another Infernal Soul in this series. The damage for them is going to be incredible. So, I mean, this is do or die for Glasgow Caledonia. As the fight seems to already be starting to break out somewhat.
Edinburgh not waiting for the objective. They're going aggressive in the jungle. Maybe a little bold for them as FaZe has to flash away. But a massive fear and a re-engagement of Vex ultimate now. League Professor has been completely isolated by the Ornn. He can't break through the brick wall that is Tumai. And Edinburgh force the fight in the jungle. They force the issue, take this game by the horns. And they're going to push us all the way to game 4. They're moving to match point in the grand final.
They take down all the targets they need. Glasgow Caledonian thought that they could look for the fight early, thought that they had burnt enough. It looked like it was going well. ChrisG managing to get people to use so many resources, but Tumai said no. He said, I am on Ornn. I have demonstrated that I am not just a K'Sante one trick. I am a wall that you cannot get past, and someone who you are going to need to deal with if you want to take game 4.
University of Edinburgh, man, even dealing with the Kha'Zix pressure from level 3 onwards, with the assassinations all throughout that game, they stayed strong, they stayed together, and they were able to fight back and take us to game 4 in a 2-1 position, on the cusp of winning the first ever Battle for Scotland League of Legends final. What a performance from them. And now for GCU, we needed the answer from them. They had a new strategy, they had a new solution, but it was not the answer. Their solution did not compute, and they ended up with another loss in their column.
Yeah, I mean, it was really well played from both. It's so beautiful the way it's come together. If we have a bit of a stomp game 1, we have a bit of a stomp game 2, we have a banger close game 3. It couldn't be any other way. And just, even though it was so close, it was UOE that managed to come out on top. So many star performances here across the board. Again, I mean, we're in this sort of MVP conversation. You could make a good excuse for anybody on the University of Edinburgh for that win. They all played very well. They got picked off early by the Kha'Zix, and again, Heavenix managing to find their way in and getting so many early advantages. But again, hate to keep coming back to it, but they adapted. They changed their game plan. They changed how they were playing, and they weren't able to get any more.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned it again, just the fact that Edinburgh don't have one MVP. They just don't. They're all so good, and they're all so good together. This is the value of having a team that plays together for a long time and can build up that synergy, that knows each other's limits, that knows how they want to play the game. And they're so in sync when it comes to these early fights. Even when Heavenix is finding individual advantages, it's always Edinburgh coming back and getting 3 kills on the back of it, right? Maybe they lose a dragon, but they're up in gold. Maybe they lose a Baron. Somehow they end up in kills, and then they end up in gold. It's crazy how often they're able to turn these fights back around on their head, even when they look losing, just because they're so confident in each other's abilities. And that's what we love to see. That is what's put them on match point right now. And for GCU, it's a lot more volatile, it's a lot more dependent on individual outplays, and it can be flashy, it can be very destabilizing themselves. But over the course of a series, we're seeing a bit of exposure right now. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's so tough, right? We felt after game one that it's like, okay, GCU's got a draft plan, it's working, they're gonna repeat it. And now, I keep wanting to just talk about Tumai and his impact on the series,
Give it to me,
because,
dude.
like, just from one pick, we saw the Kasante, and okay, you've shifted how the draft has to be played. Now the Xin Zhao is open. You pick Ornn early into Chris G, the Ornn killer. You have to make a statement game. You have to say, I am not going down without a fight here. And they did. So not only does that mean you add another tank to the pool that maybe they have to ban, but Arcanog also demonstrates that the Xin Zhao can't be left open because of the space that you bought for them.
Yeah.
It puts GCU in such a tricky position. And just from how they played these games and how these drafts have developed, it's so interesting. And I'm so excited to see how it changes going into game 4.
Yeah, I have no idea what GC were going to do in the pick and ban, honestly, this time around, because we've seen that they don't have the instant answer. The Graves ban, removing that threat, and then the usual Rengar and Kayn does seem to have removed the impact the Heavenics can have, at least on a team-wide level. But let's take a look at the MVPs from this game, just to check back on who was really topping the charts right here. For GCU, we had to really say Kevinix. The Kha'Zix steals were there, the kills were there. Sadly, it was not enough to get them all the way over the line. But there he is, the Ornn, the Brick House himself, Tumai, a worthy MVP for Edinburgh as well.
Yeah, just being an absolute menace. And again, this MVP is not even just for how fantastic their performance was in-game. It's for what we were just talking about there, about the impact that this performance means for the rest of the series, how volatile it makes game 4. And we're just actually getting information here that GCU have chosen red side for game 4, which speaks to this draft strategy, how it's changing, how Tumai is making them adapt. Obviously, the whole of Edinburgh is having an impact on this, but from that Ornn performance alone, so much has to change for GCU.
Okay, so this was the unused trick so far for GCU. We saw them pick very different styles of champions in multiple lanes, basically in every lane here. And now the one thing left in the playbook here, we change sides to red. They will have ultimate counter pick in at least one position, and they'll be able to get 2 power picks in that first rotation potentially as well. So let's see how they can use this. For now, we are going to go to a break. We'll be back in a few minutes, and we'll see what GCU have, if they can push us to a game number 5, or if Edinburgh will complete the 3-1 and become our champions after just one more game. Stick around.
Trying to find a new way where the sun's shining down on my face. I'm running away. You're in a toxic relationship. Time to be free.
It is time for game number 4. University of Edinburgh 2-1 up in the series on the cusp of the championship. And Glasgow Caledonian now down 2 games in a row, really struggling to put something together. Only Heavenix is still firing on all cylinders, but Dusk, we need to find an answer. Caledonia need to find an answer somewhere else. Where are we going? Where's the savior coming from?
Well, I'll tell you where GCU are going. They're going over to red side. They said they've had enough of these first picks, this blue side nonsense. They're taking the red side. I like the change because I think, yeah, what I want to be seeing them is using R1, R2 to get something they're safe, get something they're confident on. And then use the counter picks that we've got on red side to make sure that they have real answers to each of the lanes that University of Edinburgh are putting forward. Because what it felt like in the last 2 drafts is that the University of Edinburgh got the opportunity to pick their answers. They got to pick their lanes. They got to pick the Seraphine. They got to pick, you know, the early Ornn, and then they also got to late rotate the Vex, which is a huge comfort pick for FaZe. So use the counter picks to the best of your ability. And I mentioned it in pre-draft, and I'm gonna say it here. I want a bit of a redemption arc from Chris G here. I want because I know he can punish this Ornn pick. I know it's in his skill book, so I want to see it. I want to see a Camille. I want to see something big damage. I want to see it. I want to see this game.
Yeah, it's a tough game to come in, especially when you're on a comfort pick into a matchup you're trying to dominate, and to be shut out that hard, especially after you're having a decent start to the lane. And we need to see what Chris G's attitude is going to be coming into this game, right? Are they going to recede back into a tank matchup, or are they going to still be able to play for the lane domination to try and really play into the Chris G that we all know and love? And I too would love to see a little bit more coming out of them, and we still have a chance to begin that comeback for GCU, and it might all start in the top lane. As we head down the rest of the lanes as well, we're still seeing Heavenix popping off in the jungle. We know that the guy is there. We know the guy is still playing well. As we start through the bans, I mean, I imagine the bans are probably going to be pretty similar. But what do we think about Crawford in the mid lane? Because we had the Lissandra, and we did see some of the utility there, but we still didn't necessarily see too much more out of that mid lane for GCU either.
Yeah, I think what the issue was, it wasn't necessarily the Lissandra being a bad pick. I think it was just at the points in the game where they were going for the plays that they were going for, the damage just wasn't there to follow up. As whatever line we're talking about has to be taken away, because GCU chose as their third ban. It's not the K'Sante, it's not the Xin Zhao, it's the Neeko, which I really like.
Yeah, I think Deathcap's a little too good at this champion for us to give it to him again for the 3rd game in a row, Dusk. I think you're correct. But yeah, that does leave plenty of power for UOE. Now, they can only take one, and they've gone for the Maokai. So neither of those options, but they still have a strong option for both the top and support. Support has just been the first pick, I think, in every single game, Nautilus or Maokai, which is kind of crazy to think when there's so much other power in these teams, you know, outside of the support position. But we'll see what the GCU answer is going to be. Lewis has not had that much fun over the last couple of games, and we'll see if he can get a little bit more of a foothold here, and it is going to be going back to the Xayah, the pick that did get them to win in game 1.
Yeah, I mean, this is exactly what I was expecting, what we were talking about earlier. Use the fact that you get 2 picks early on to just pick something that's comfortable. We saw Lewis with an incredible Xayah performance, and you can't talk about CWL without talking about Nautilus. Even in the game they were losing, he was still MVP. He was still landing hooks. He was still creating pressure on the map. So I love that pick in the draft. And then pretty much exactly what we were expecting from Edinburgh.
Yep, they have picked the picks that have worked best for them. The Zeri back for the 3rd time in a row for Redpin. He is looking very well ready to go on this side. And then Tumai going straight back to Orb Reliable in the K'Sante. So GCU have to answer the premium pick for Tumai. They need to try and find a way to break open this K'Sante. It is not an easy feat. We can say this for sure, as the Azir is locked into mid lane. Bit of playmaking for Crawford, bit of scaling as well, and a bit more safety in the lane, bit of range to play with.
I like this disruption to the enemy team, but also, I think most importantly, the damage to back it up. Because while Heavenix is a fantastic player and putting him on Assassins is, of course, going to do wonders for your damage profile, you still need it to be spread across your entire team. You can't just have a one-man band with a bunch of supports to back him up. And I really like the Azir pick. Crawford is comfortable on it, knows what he's doing, and I think that's a really good pick here and saving the answer to top lane for later.
He's heading to the second round of the bans. The Phasmin Vex has been removed. We'll see if he's going to go on to something comfort. We see something new from Phasmin in this game. I believe it's been a different champion for him every lane so far. So we are seeing the depth of pool that Phasmin has. Can go for the control side, can go for the engage side. There is a lot of versatility there, and that makes him a very solid player to play around. As we're into the second round for Edinburgh, back onto the Kane ban, unsurprising there. The Seraphine actually removed for GCU, so taking away a very safe long-range option that Phasmin could have had, and something that played so well with the Cassante and the Maokai last time around.
Yeah. Now the question here, what is the pick order for GCU? Do they lock in the top lane or do they lock in the jungle? Because this Maokai is still technically a flex. You're not going to know. So I would posit on the side of lock in what you want into the Cassante. You've seen over half the team. You should know what's safe, but instead they go for the Kindred.
Okay, we are trying to carry the game again. We are going for an AD carry in the jungle, a champion that can also turn these team fights with the Lamb's Respite as well. Does have great steal potential with the delay that it has often there, and again, very much rewards excellent pathing and being able to have support from your team to invade and punish at the right time, and that has been all, you know, Heavenix's playbook so far today.
Yeah, I mean, we saw it last game with the Kazakhs where they just got so much value off of the early invades. The Vel'Koz pick, that has to be going down in the support, right? I was just going to mention earlier, before we had so much more to talk about, the Zeri, this is going to be its first time without the Nico, so what's the pick that goes with it? The answer to that is you shove the Maokai in the jungle, and you pick Vel'Koz, the noted pick here for the support.
Give it to us, please. Okay, so we have the Vel'Koz here. We now have the range to contest in the spot side. A little vulnerable to Nautilus, sure, but we know the skill is there for Deathcap, and the teamfight presence is massive from him. Now, the Ahri final pick, personally, puts me to sleep. But I think it's a fine pick to just throw into the middle of a team comp where you don't really have anything else to take. And we know there is skill expression there, and Phasmin can be at least confident in the lane to just push and roam, and that's fine. But I'm still sleeping because Ahri is I'm afraid it's a cringe champ. There's no other word. I'm afraid that's it.
I'm not gonna disagree with you there. I think that there's worse chance we could see. The Trundle being hovered. I think GCU with the Kindred in their draft, Kindred is your Zaya. I think you do need another somewhat tanky champion. Trundle is that answer.
Oh, we got it.
I think it's a good pick into the Cassante. I'm not too sure about the whole comp overall, because now, whilst you do have, you know, Shurima Shuffle, you have Nautilus CC, you're lacking a lot of hard CC. Pillar's not it. Pillar is not it. But it's a really good into the matchup.
I like that it can interrupt Vel'Koz ult if he's held it. If he's held it for long enough, he can just wait for Vel'Koz to press it and then just go E under him and bump him, and then it ruins his Vel'Koz ult. So that is a nice interaction, but again, that's a niche interaction. It removes the support's ultimate, which should not necessarily be the fight winning play. It could be. We'll see how this game goes, but I do like it into the Cassante as well. It gives Chris G a chance to actually try and win the 1v1, and that's really what we want out of this guy, right? That is the bread and butter for him. That's the style that works best for him, and that's the pick that can let him do it.
Yeah, I mean, this is the exact kind of thing that I wanted. I wanted to see a tank, and then I wanted to see an answer to the tank. Because last game, Chris G struggled into it. He got given the Akali and wasn't quite able to get leeway onto it. Now, as you mentioned, not only is it a good opportunity for him to actually win the lane, there is skill expression in how you deal with the ultimate. And you say, you know, the support's ultimate might not be the game-winning play. After watching the last two games of Dr. Deathcap, I would have to massively agree with you.
Yeah.
We'll have to see if he can do it the same on Vel'Koz as he has been doing it on Nico. Obviously not quite as powerful as the Pop Blossom, but that ultimate can still be incredibly influential. So yeah, we'll see if that's something Chris G is even thinking about, if he's not just gone Trundle good into Cassante. I like Big here. And if he's actually taking his mind out of the troll and is instead saying, okay, this is a really good answer here to these champions.
Yeah, it does maybe leave an option for some more split pushing from Chris G as well. The Trundle's obviously a great split pusher, and the Kindred Azir core of a team fight makes a great, if you need to 4v5, there's worse champions to 4v5 on, right? Because the Kindred can delay and allow you to get that extra damage out with the invulnerability to death. The Zaya as well, great at dealing with the pressure themselves with the Featherstorm. So I like this from GCU. I like the adaptation. Obviously, we'll have to see what's going to come through for it. We know that Heavenix is going to be playing to get a massive lead, and if he does, we need to see if that's enough to win the game, right? Because the Kazakhs was big at the individual assassinations, but even when it got to the end, they were struggling with that because of the Nico, because of the Vex, all of the threats in there. but the Kindred is an AD carry with a very short cooldown dash. This is a champion that can be the Zeri on the other side and maybe just be outplaying to win the team fights.
Yeah, I mean, really what this game is going to come down to, because yet again I would argue that GCU have drafted a harder composition to play than University of Edinburgh. Edinburgh again just have fantastic front to back team fighting. You've got clear engage, you've got clear damage targets, and you've got like a clear and easy way to play the fight around the Kindred ultimate, around the Trundle pillar with the Shurima shuffle. There's a lot more on execution, and what GCU has been failing to do in the last 2 games is as a team execute. Heavenix has still been trying his darndest to find his way into the fights, but I think, not to put anything onto anyone, but as a team they've not necessarily been batting quite as well as he has. So this is an opportunity for Crawford, this is an opportunity for Chris G, this is an opportunity for Lewis CWL to say, we're here, we're back, and we're behind our star player, and we're also playing well individually.
Yeah, for sure. I think particularly I'm going to be keeping an eye on Lewis and CWL in bot lane. They were so dominant on this duo in game 1. Multiple 2v2 double kills coming out of this pairing. Now they're up against the Vel'Koz, which can play at range and is the most comfortable pick for Deathcap. But it's Nautilus. At some point you can just flash R and Vel'Koz has to go, well, you know, that's fair enough, I guess. Shoot. I guess I've been outplayed. So there is that mismatch there that they can maybe use. And if they have, once again, the presence of Heavenix in this bot lane that was very impactful for them in game 1 and 2 during the lane, that could be a way for Kindred to farm stacks. It could be a way for Lewis to get fed, and then he can be the one actually shredding through people like the Zeri, the Ahri, the K'Sante, even if they're the ones ingressing onto him.
Yeah, and I mean, you mentioned there just the power that the Nautilus can have. I was talking about how the players on Caledonia need to execute this game. They need to play well around the star player. CWL, he's on comfort here. This is the Nautilus. This is the champion he can execute on. So this is the game for it. This is the champion for it. We also have the Xayah. We've already seen the Xayah be incredible for Lewis. I believe it was in game 1. That was played fantastically. And Kindred as a carry option is very good. It's a sort of nice blend of what we've seen working so far, where the Karthus was a little too weak in the early game, whereas the Kha'Zix was also a bit too easy to blow up. So this is a nice combination of a bit more strength in the early game, a little bit more skirmishing, great scaling, and an ultimate to keep him alive and to do a bit of playmaking.
Yeah, for sure. I as long as we can see the Trundle on the K'Sante or the right characters as well, there's just so much DPS from GCU, man. The Azir, Kindred, Xayah, like, oh my word. The auto attacks are going to melt anyone who is in range of these champions, especially if they're getting Trundle ultimated. So UOE, they're going to have to pick their moments carefully if they're trying to fight. Now, if they're trying to get to the objective first instead, they have the Vel'Koz to play with, they have the Maokai zone control and the Ahri, so they've got some tools there. But GCU still has the Nautilus, and they still have, I think, decent ways to play from range to engage the pillar as well to disrupt. So I think that it's hard for UOA to play. The objectives are harder than last game for sure, but GCU, we need to get out of the lane better than we did before, or we're just going to get run over. It's all come down to this. You could be ending your tournament here in game number 4, or you could push us through to go the full 5.
And that's exactly what we want to be seeing from them. Comfort picks coming out for Glasgow as we get into this game, and still on Evan and his team to make sure that they can make plays. Now, I'm really interested to see how this early ward game is going to evolve into the series, and yet, just as I was expecting, both teams a little bit more scared now. We had flashes burnt, we then had vision traded back, leading to an invade. Both teams were getting into game 4. They've matured as players, they're settled. We're not needing to do any silly ward exchanges in the early game.
Yeah, they're just going to get a little bit of easy river vision down, not going to threaten the level 1, not going to end their game at the 5-minute mark, hopefully, for either side. And it's been, to be honest, you know, the Nautilus is a decent attempt on one side, but Xayah doesn't have the root. The Azir has basically nothing to offer at level 1. He has got auto attacks that are slightly stronger than a normal mage's auto attacks. And we do see some more deep vision being placed down by UOE on that top side. So they are maybe trying to keep a closer track of Heavenix here to keep an eye on where this Kindred is going. Obviously, there is the whole the mark system to play with, where you can try and bait people into thinking you go into one lane, then you show up in another. But trying to get the maximum amount of marks as quick as possible is absolutely vital for Heavenix here. So we're going to have to keep a close eye on his progress.
Yeah, monitoring that progress. And also, I think another important thing to monitor for Glasgow Caledonian University is how well the Azir is scaling, how much gold they have, because they are the only magic damage threat on Glasgow Caledonian. Well, technically, sure, you have, some Nautilus spells and Trundle ultimate. That's obviously not going to be enough.
Oh, CWL with the hooks already and a big health advantage. This is what we want from him, right? You gave him the Nautilus back and he's already hitting the skill shots.
Exactly. Yeah, you want him to do what he does best, and he's showing it already. Thread the needle through the minion wave and get it in. So this is exactly what we want to see out of him. We know what we want to see out of Crawford, and we know what we want to see out of League Professor and the rest of the team. Can Glasgow Caledonian do it to take us to a Game 5? I sure hope they can.
Hazeman with a medium invade here to keep track of that other side as well, to see if Heavenix is actually going towards that bottom side. They can currently track him on the Raptors right now. He'll see that that ward just disappeared, so he knows that they know that he knows that they know. But we'll see if there's actually a play for Edinburgh to be made here, or if they are just going to keep one eye on the Kindred at this early stage.
Yeah, I think the play is probably going to rear its head sooner rather than later, because, of course, because they have this vision, because they know what side Kindred is on and precisely how close they are to finishing their camps, they're going to know what the kind of threat level is in regards to this scuttle, because obviously one of these two is going to get marked on the map. RNG, it's a 50-50 as to whether or not it's on Kindred's side. With that ward cleared, they are going to have slightly less knowledge, but they know where Kindred is. And Maokai here pathing towards the same side means that we're likely going to see a contest, especially if this camp has a mark on it.
Honestly, just the fact that Heavenix knew to sweep that area to look for the ward evidently passed the information that Fazeman went briefly missing from mid lane and just thought, I'm properly on vision, let's just drop the sweeper and see where it is to clear it out. This is the kind of thing that is getting him these advantages in the early game time and time again. Clears out the Maokai sapling as well, wants to make sure there are no undue influences on his jungle when that time to make the play rears its head.
Yeah, and just as we mentioned there with the mark, it was unfortunately not in League Professor's favor. Heavenix does not manage to get the free mark and just has to accept that Arcanug was on that top side as they look for a gank in the bot lane.
Well, let's see the hook. It has to be it. Lovely knockup from the Vel'Koz, though. There's the flash, and it catches onto the Zeri. Deathcap flashes behind their AD carry. They do have the health between them to survive, but it's just one flash from CWL, as now Chris G's getting aggressive, gets the ghost out of Tumai, in fact, pops his own, drops down another chomp, and will push him lower. But the Trundle is starting to take control up here, and once again, the Heavenix presence in bot lane is all they need to get the advantage with GCU.
Yeah, flash for flash in the bot lane, ghost for ghost in the top. We're seeing someone who's being traded the hook, just going wide, and it's very well played by both teams. The amount of posturing and precise aggression that we've seen from both teams coming out so far has been incredible. GCU doing a very good job to survive and eat the pressure, and Tumai in the top side also doing incredibly well to survive and eat the pressure. And now we're starting to get the objective timers coming up. Grubs and Dragon are both online, and I'm really interested to see how this impacts the game, because we mentioned how Kindred can deal a little bit of damage early, especially with this lethal tempo as the rune choice. The damage can come out, but it's not obviously their strong point. They scale more and more as we getting those marks down. But I want to see not only how the objectives change the flow of this game, but this third factor of the Kindred marks, of where people are positioning around that, where Heavenix is going, how the enemy team is responding, and how it's going to be played as we see Arcanug starting off Drake.
Heavenix and GCU have been very willing to contest early objectives, even with these quote-unquote scaling farming junglers, the Graves and the Carters. They're very willing to go and fight in early skirmishes, despite the fact that now they might be a little behind the curve. They have priority in bot lane, but not in mid lane. And Kindred still cleaning up a camp or two right now, so Edinburgh likely to retain full control of this dragon before it is completed. But in comes League Professor around the corner. Not level 6 just yet. Deathcap does get caught up by the hook, and Kindred's coming in for the damage. Lewis is around the corner, and it's Dragon for Vel'Koz. First blood secured for the Chargers. Lewis picks up the credit. Crawford in with a flash, but Fazeman can simply ult over it. Ult and flash for Crawford, just the ult for the Ahri. A little advantage there in the mid lane, but first ball onto Lewis. We needed to see more from him. All out caught by Tumai as well. Christie drops the ultimate there. This is going to be a little close, and K'Sante has the tower to play through. Looks for the knockup. Doesn't quite get it. That could have been the kill, but Five's been round the corner. This time it's Chris G on the wrong side of town, and K'Sante will pick up the 1v1 kill.
The 1v1 kill picked up, of course. It is unfortunately taken away from by the fact that we've got the early Thornmail. We have decided that we do not want to play the video game, so we're going to take the anti-heal item versus the Trundle. Completely valid in a finals circumstance. And yeah, here I would say we just see Dr. Deathcap getting a bit too big for his boots, thinking that just because his jungler is on Dragon, he can walk up here. Not quite the play, but at the end of the day, they get the Dragon, not the end of the world.
Professor working on the grubs right now. Arcanog is in the area, doesn't have level 6 right now, whereas Akali does. And Chris G still maintaining priority in that top line. We are going to get the full 3 grub stack over it for GCU in this first spawn of the camp right here. So Dragon for grubs across the map, 1 kill apiece, but it is a small gold lead for Caledonian right now. Gold advantage in the jungle and top side, mid and bot slightly further behind.
And as these leads slowly start to develop, I mean, I would argue this is probably the closest the gold has been in this point in the game this whole series. Normally, by this sort of 8-minute point, we've seen a bit of an explosive fight, and the gold's leading a lot more in one direction. But right now, we've got a 200 gold advantage, really not that significant, as we see some invades and a scuffle starting.
They have no priority in top lane. Arcanog is a little deep right now. Crawford almost has the ult back round. If Chris G can hold them in place, this could be big for them. Little damage on this Trundle. Maybe he's thrown his life away for it. Chomps and ghosts away. As Heavenix was not in range to get the damage down. Crawford now with the Emperor's Divide. Arcanog has full retreated already. A tense one, but no one goes down at the end of it.
Yeah, lots of posturing again, back and forth. Ultimately, there is a winner here because I would argue Chris G obviously goes low, has to burn the ghost, not ideal, and they also lose the camp. So again, slight advantages, but this gold is just dead even in this game. It's such even footing for both players. We're really just getting to breaking point here. I can absolutely feel that we're not going to be in this 1-1 even kill state for long. I've got that tingle in my bones.
Yeah.
I can feel that there's going to be an explosive fight, whether it's around the Kindred mark or it's around an upcoming objective.
Yeah, for sure. I like that we can see in this bot side the impact that Dr. Deathcap has on this Vel'Koz, the range they can play with. The Zeri as well, which wasn't present in that first game. It was the Jinx instead in that case. But both of them can really leverage this poke onto Lewis and CWL. If you don't get Nautilus hooked, you're just going to be bullying all day, all night. You're getting plate advantage in bot lane forward as well.
Yeah, I mean, and this is the reason this is a comfort pick for Dr. Deathcap, right? They tried something in the first game, it didn't work, and then they got on the Nico. The Nico's working. And it looks like, of course, at least thus far, the Vel'Koz is working in the bot lane as Chris G ultimates, by the looks of things, just to trade damage and get the wave safe for this tower.
The Heavenix wants to go on the bot side. Arcanog as well, taking up position in that bot side. Jungle Hook barely misses the Vel'Koz. Could have had a chance to burn a summoner there, and the Kindred is in the back pocket. But right now, no angle can be found. There's a lot of vision being placed down by UOE. They've got every jungle entrance covered. The Heavenix is coming through the lane.
Yeah, you can cover every jungle entrance, but you can't.
Nautilus has pressed R, everybody. In comes the Zeri, creates the flash, and the hook doesn't land. It'll be 1 kill for Redpin, but 1 traded back, and Heavenix gets their first of the game. Chris G, though, once again struggling under the enemy tower, and it's a 2nd kill for K'Sante. Crawford looking for the roam, but eats a charm on his way back. Drops down to about half HP. The Heavenix now with their first kill of the game. It's a big moment for him.
I mean, we've already seen in this game, this is Tumai again sending a message. You cannot give him this champion and not have to worry about it. Oh, that blast cone was tight. Yeah, there.
I thought that route had connected, I'll be honest, Dust, but apparently the game did not agree. And me, Professor, will step away. Could have been a dangerous catch there. Crawford's going for something before we go into this replay.
We didn't want to see it anyway.
Yeah, it's fine. It's chill. Nothing's going on.
I think he whiffed the ultimate. Yeah, damage going down the ultimate, and yeah, exactly. He just gets pulled under tower, takes a tower shot, and then the damage from K'Sante is just too much.
Yeah, it's like the Gragas effect, you know, or like the Talia effect. You just cannot be pushing them kind of with abandon of the tower because he has the ultimate to drag you back. And Christian has suffered twice to that threat. Crawford, it looks like it was indeed nothing that happened here. Paceman did lose the ultimate somehow as well. Gets a flash with the charm out of the Azir. GCU are contesting this dragon position right now, but both the mid lane are a little lacking in resources. It might come down to a smite fight here. Lewis looking to find an angle. Big damage onto Nautilus. Does find the hook before he goes down. There wants to be Ari, but down goes Heavenix. Break secured by Arcanug, and Derry wants a little bit more. They're on to Lewis, and they've got the double for the Vel'Koz. The rest of Caledonia are running back to mid lane.
2 kills, they're now 2 Drakes up, as we see very clearly that the ocean map is going to be the upcoming choice, and they immediately put this lead into scrub. Very well played by Edinburgh. Glasgow Caledonian are starting to feel the game going away from them now. I mentioned that we could feel sort of that fight blue, something was going to explode, and that's exactly what it was. It was a 1-for-1 trade in the bot, Tutemai demonstrating his strength in the top lane, and now just good, clean fights around dragons are going to slowly get installed.
I think that the threat that can potentially be on the Kindred at this early stage, which doesn't have that much damage yet, with an Ari, with a Vel'Koz, with a Maokai, if you step too far forward, they can just click on you and kind of just CC you down to nothing or force an early ultimate. And I think we saw a little bit of that fear coming out of Heavenix there. Couldn't find the angle to get damage down. Obviously doesn't have the extra range because the marks just aren't stacked up yet. At some point, I imagine if we can get a check on how many stacks Lead Professor does have, I can't imagine it's more than 2 or 3 maybe.
No, yeah, it can't be at all because they've missed all the jungle camp marks, I believe, thus far, and they can have only got, you know, most 1 or 2, I believe, from the kills. Yeah, they've only got 2 kill participations, so that might be about to change.
Oh, we're pressing our Vel'Koz once again. There should be maybe a trade kill for Derry, but Heavenix is here to clean up. Derry gets 1, and Lewis has to play with the spacing here. Double for Red Pin now, and Heavenix has just gone down! Dies with R off. It's a disaster for Caledonia. Crawford again doesn't get the shuffle, but he'll still find the kill. Fazeman and Deathcap looking for more. Crawford knows he has to stand and fight, but Fazeman in with the Spirit Rush. Vel'Koz is all the way out of there. And it's a kill onto Azir to clean it up. Now 9-3 the kill score, but GCU are starting to come apart at the seams.
Beautifully played by Redfin there, realizing that they had the damage they needed to go aggressive to get the kills, and fundamentally going, what was that, 3 for 1? Incredibly played. So here we get in to see it again. The health bar is significantly bigger on the side of Edinburgh. The hook misses from CWL. The ultimate does land, but again, they've just taken so much damage, and Redfin just realizes, yeah, I've got this. The pullback in doesn't find its target. The Kindred goes down, and now we don't want to look at this, but I'm starting to see why you said what you said in your notes.
Yeah.
But
Need me say
unfortunately,
more,
yeah,
you know?
you don't need to say more. I think
It's a
but
struggle. It's
he's
a struggle for Crawford.
It's a struggle. It's a struggle.
Yeah, he does have 1 kill there, but the CS lead significantly for Fazeman. We're seeing a lot of roams right there. We are seeing the Ari get active across the map, and it's not going to have the same late game impact, but they're already building the threats in bot and top. Tutemai doing very well for himself, and this red pin Zeri is fast becoming the actual linchpin of these Edinburgh comps, man. They're going back to it time and time again, and every lane he seems to perform better.
Yeah, I mean, fundamentally, what they've done is they've identified what works and they've stuck to it. If Zeri's working in your games, Zeri's working, but League Professor sneaking in.
We go again. There's a flash from the Nautilus. Is it enough? Oh, he misses the hook! Surely this is enough to get the Vel'Koz. They really want this shutdown, and Heavenix does find it, but Fazeman in with the instant teleport. Do they have the damage? Lewis and Heavenix can fight back in this 2 versus 2. It's a lovely route from the Xayah, but it's not enough, and 2 more in the bag for Edinburgh.
GCU are pumping so many resources in to try and kill this Zeri, but Edinburgh are responding fantastically every time. Not only is Redpin playing incredibly well, but Fazeman is instantly on that teleport button, ready to go. They are playing so well as a team.
Put in that top lane fight, and now he's diving Chris G as well. We felt good about this Trundle in the early stages, but you know, a couple of those mistakes under the enemy tower, and it does seem like the Cassante has once again just taken over.
Yeah, I mean, I think whilst it is possible to get an advantage in this lane early on, the second this Bramble Best comes in, it's so hard to keep pushing it. I think it's more of a late game for a counter pick. As we get into these fights, this Trundle ultimate is going to be really influential. But speaking of influential ultimates,
Time for Edinburgh to make the play on bot side. This time CWL caught up with 3 members bearing down on him in the bot lane. Lewis has already pieced out of that equation as Faceman is looking for more. Lovely charm predicts the sidestep. There's no ult on the Zayat, but he has the safety of the tower. It's just the style points at the end of it.
as we see here, aggression on the top lane likely not going to result in too much. Chris G
Again,
just
it's under the tower. It's spooking me, man. It's making me sweat. He does have League Professor in the area, but this Ravenous Hydra build for Chris G, it's great in the long extended auto-attacking matches, but under the tower, there's no resistance to help you.
Yes, we see here posturing for the fight.
He's got the W out, and there's Heavenix perfect layer, and there's the pillar to stop him. The ult doesn't get over the wall, so Tumai cannot make it the 1v2. He'll still find a kill for himself. Here we have a K'Sante moment on the cards. One for the Q, auto, but it's a shutdown for the Kindred. There's no highlight clip for Tumai here, but he does at least get the 1-for-1.
I mean, still a highlight clip in my books. Getting the kill in the 1v2, doing more than a job. Almost the K'Sante moment. Absolutely. Well played from him there. 4-1 up now. That does, however, mean a shutdown going on to Heavenix as there's a scrap in the bot lane.
FaZeman getting a little too big for the boots
Yeah.
right there. Crawford will survive. It's another kill for Professor. Deathcap very aggressively positioned here. Luckily, the blast cone there to bail him out as Lewis gets chunked down by the Q on the way into the jungle. I thought League Professor might be able to get a 5th right there. He's up to 4 kills now with some shutdowns. The carry gold has arrived in his pocket, but it's a tall order to get this game back in hand.
Yeah, don't get me wrong, the scaling numbers are pretty decent on the side of GCU, but so are they on the side of Edinburgh. It's really tough to find your way into this. It's going to have to be picks, and you know, hey, at the end of the day, if FaZeman is running in behind your enemy tier 2 to try and find sneaky kills, sure, maybe there is an angle back into this, but right now, 5k gold up for University of Edinburgh. Massive advantages across the board, and it's just, again, we mentioned it in draft, Glasgow keeps drafting these hard to play drafts as we see Chris G just in Narnia.
Yeah, that is a 3 versus 1 you are on the wrong side of. Lewis and CW around the corner, and Heavenix actually, I tell a lie, with a TP in from Crawford too. The charm is down for FaZeman, and now the 5 stack of GCU has coalesced in the mid lane, but they need to find a pick onto someone. They look for Ari, but they can't find it, and Chris G abandoned on the other side, and looks like the support's coming in for Edinburgh, and suddenly they're closing the jaws on Caledonia. The 2 carries, Lewis and Heavenix, sprinting back to the jungle. They cannot hope to stand up against the 5-man Edinburgh stack.
Oh dear, Crawford, Shurima shuffling thin air yet again, and it's not looking too good for the fight. They just can't find these advantages. Everything that looks like a pick, the Ahri is nipping out. She has the ultimate just in time. Every time they think they're on to Zeri, she's surviving the fight. It's so hard for Glasgow Caledonian here. As again, we see the shuffle missing, the damage going down on Trundle. The hook does land, but it spells CWL's demise as the damage keeps coming in. The feathers fly just to get them out, but it's still just enough to keep them alive in this fight.
Such a struggle for GCU right now. This is much more like games 2 and 3 when Edinburgh dealing well with Heavenix. He's pathing well, he's finding advantages, he's trying to make plays on the map. But Edinburgh have got into such a deep groove right now. The Zeri pick in the bot lane with the range for Dr. Deathcap. FaZeman all over this this mid lane matchup. And Tumai as well in his absolute element on the K'Sante here. The bans, not enough bans to deny him this champion. And he's making massive use of it in another game here.
I mean, that's really what's felt like an incredible strength of University of Edinburgh for the whole of the series, especially as we got into Game 2 and Game 3. It just feels like 5 bans isn't enough versus them. You can't take the K'Sante off the board. You can't take the Zeri off the board if you're wanting to deny all these other champions that are absolutely necessary to take out.
Yeah, we have to think about maybe, obviously hindsight is 2020 here. Perhaps we would have had to drop maybe the Hui, maybe not the Taliyah ban, because the Taliyah is a champion that can really affect the whole map, and it's very, very proficient for FaZeman. But maybe we have to drop the Hui ban, something potentially exploitable for Heavenix. in that mid lane and we can keep the Cassante. As I say, it's very easy to look back and say, well, you should have banned this champion instead, but it's just so tough. It's kind of just indicative of how tough the draft phase has been for GCU to keep up with the evolving Edinburgh. As Chris G holding his position in the brush right now, probably doesn't want to give the game away. Probably just wants to recall. He's in fact just going to start pulling the wave. And if anyone comes down to kill him, he is just Giga dead. But looks like they're going to let him live this time as the Baron call on the other side for Caledonia.
Yeah, GCU making a really quick call. It is going to be on Vision, so it's unknown variable. The teleport's coming in.
On both sides right here, and the quick peel back from GCU. Edinburgh not holding on to the aggro right now. The Baron will full reset. Both teams have arrived, so the Maokai ult is out, but no one's really quite in range. The Vel'Koz looking to get the ultimate down. Chris G on the front line. Knock up onto Heavenix, but no follow-up from the Vel'Koz just yet. CWL kind of low, but over the wall, still has an ult. Still has to flash Crawford, just getting lasered down. And the front line for GCU has evaporated behind Edinburgh, chasing them all the way back to the tower. One shot knocks it down, and they can collapse in again to continue the massacre in top lane.
This is such a dominant performance from the University of Edinburgh. We've seen them improve every aspect of their play across this series, and this game is no exception. They are showing the weaknesses of Glasgow Caledonian for exactly what they are, and this fight proves it perfectly. Glasgow making a bit of a desperate call. They're down a lot in this game. Both TPs burnt, and then as we see this fight develop, they get pushed back into their own jungle, and the damage is just too much. While Chris G tries to find the damage onto the Maokai, it burns his ultimate. It's just too little, too late. The Zeri is in. She is picking the fight. She's so strong, and the damage that comes out from the Ahri and the ultimate is just too much for Glasgow to handle.
It's such powerful chase down, right? The Ahri and the Maokai are so hard to get away from. Even the Cassante, the Zeri, everyone can just hound you through your entire map once they get a sniff of blood in the water. And Edinburgh are so decisive with their leads today. And now they sit with the Ocean Soul on their backs. 23 kills up to 6 and 10k in the lead. This is going to have to be a comeback of truly miraculous proportions for Caledonia. And even then, that's just to get to game 5. They would have to do it all over again to have a sniff in at the championship.
Backs against the walls, and Baron is the target for the University of Edinburgh. It does not feel like Glasgow's in any position to even attempt some kind of contested. And Max, you can hope for the pick on the dodger like that, but it looks like they're just going to clear the waves. I agree with the play. Unfortunately, that's the reality that they need to try and turtle here. Unfortunately, the reality of the situation is UAE is going to go for an engage at some point with this Baron to try and get the waves in and probably punch up the game, especially with these waves pushing in. You just need to hope that they mess it up, because a 10k gold lead, there's not much else going for you.
There's been plenty of proficient macro done today. This should be the easiest macro call of them all. And look at Redpin peppering down Crawford. Heavenix trying to escape back to the tower, scrambling to the safety of the team. But Vel'Koz is there with the death laser, removes the carry, removes the jungler, and Tumai now diving deeper and deeper to keep the pressure on as Crawford will be eliminated. Chris G doing what he can to keep the minions at bay as Cassante will roll back to his team past the enemy tower.
I'm fairly certain Tumai was dealing with damage from his Thornmail there when he was taken, and it's just going to continue. The damage is crazy. Lewis, just going down the charm, does get back away from it, but it's not enough.
Last of the training, Chris G comes in for one last ditch effort, but again the Cassante eludes him. Lewis and Heavenix, so many times it has been just them standing, trying to hold the line in this game, and the Baron minions knocking on the door, the Nexus turrets crumbling in front of their eyes. They need to try and pull off the wildest 2v5 you've ever seen, but Lewis is already down, Crawford's alive, but it is only to see the Hate Watchers to be vindicated as the cheers erupt in the capital. University of Edinburgh are your first Battle for Scotland League of Legends champions.
Incredibly well played by them. It was a fantastic series. Congratulations to Edinburgh and commiserations to Glasgow. I think that game there proves it. It illustrates the point that if you put your eggs all in one basket, the enemy team is really good at making omelets. You're in trouble.
Yeah.
And
Bro.
Edinburgh showed that playing us a team, playing as a
Yeah.
unit, working together, and making sure that everyone is on equal footing is the most important thing in this game.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a team game. It is a 5v5 multiplayer online battle arena, okay? We cannot simply rely on the solo carry, and Edinburgh today were the better 5-stack. They played so well together, and even on that individual level, they were playing hot today. After that game 1, that snapped them out of some sort of stupor, man, because they were all going crazy so many times across the rest of those games on multiple different picks. It was just a clinic that they put on. They came in as one of the favorites, didn't lose a game until the winners finals, and looked like our very deserving champions here today.
Yeah, I mean, just I think it really proves a point that because we've been picking the MVPs just in the background to reveal all the production secrets, but we've been picking the MVPs, and it feels like every winning game for University of Edinburgh, you could have said anyone, and it would have been like a completely valid pick, which you could have backed up with like decent reasoning. They have just been playing so solidly, and while it's not necessarily been one like any star pop-off performances, it's just fantastic fundamental play from a group of people who clearly have played together a lot and enjoy doing it.
Yes, absolutely. And this is a team that I feel confident as well going into other university competitions. University of Edinburgh have always been a strong competitor there. Now, in the Glasgow scene, we've had Battle for Glasgow. We have plenty of strong teams here, and we love to play together and have events like Battle for Glasgow that obviously came as the progenitor to Battle for Scotland. And Edinburgh, I know that there's just on the other side of the central belt there is always a killer. There is always a predator waiting there. Such a strong threat the whole time for them. And we're glad to see that this is still a kind of a titan of the Scottish League scene is the University of Edinburgh. They cannot be forgotten or ignored because they refuse to be ignored here today and all the way through BFS. They were so strong.
The first winner of any BFS event. This is the first. Today we witnessed history. We had the pleasure of casting history. It was an incredible series. Let's take a look at some of the stats from this last game going and just miring at just how fantastically Edinburgh played. GCU laid down the gauntlet. They tried their absolute best throughout all of this series, but it was just not enough. Fantastically played from Edinburgh, and they are absolutely deserving of this win.
Yeah, 100%. We can see the MVP Redpin in that last game with the Zeri, the crazy 2v3 outplays in bot lane, and as soon as he got his hands on this pick, he went absolutely wild here today. On the other side, Heavenix as well, trying to pull off some interesting gank paths, trying to keep the lead going, trying to build a carry threat on the side of GCU, but sadly it was not enough. UE were just too strong here today. I think we have to give as well special shoutouts to Tumai on the Cassante, defeating every counter thrown his way, no matter what the pick, and making such an impact in this top side. And then Dr. Deathcap on the Vel'Koz. I wanted to see it at least once today, and I'm glad we did. It was a beauty.
It was, yeah, just fantastically played across the board. It's so exciting to see. And, you know, I think what the nice thing is about this is, you know, Glasgow Caledonian fans, all you in chat, because we know they're here, there will still be plenty more times for you guys to redeem yourself, because I believe Glasgow Caledonian is in at least one, if not two more finals. And even if you're not a Glasgow Caledonian University fan, I believe Glasgow universities make up over half of the teams competing in the finals that we've got going on this week. So don't worry, your run is not over yet.
We'll take the average victory. We'll just come second every time, and then we'll claim we're the best on a mean scale, like the coolest technical winners always do. But it's do you want to just since you're probably best positioned to know this, could you want to shout out the rest of the games you have and timings as well, the schedule for the rest of the week, so everyone can tune in for more Scottish gaming?
Yeah, so our schedule going forward for this week. Tomorrow we have Valorant. That is going to be a fantastic series between Abertay and the University of Glasgow. Then on Wednesday, we're going to have Overwatch 2, which is also going to be fantastic. This is going to be a preview for this year's Battle for Glasgow, because we got the University of Strathclyde versus Glasgow Caledonian University. Then on Thursday, Counter-Strike 2. we're going to be running that. That is between, God, I need to remember, University of Glasgow and University of Strathclyde. So another Glasgow matchup. And then to round us out on the Friday, Glasgow Caledonian University versus University of Glasgow in Rocket League. So plenty more games to be played, plenty more Glasgow games to be played. And I'm so excited for all of it. Start time does differ slightly between 6 and 7 p.m. depending on what the players choose. So make sure you're aware of that when you're tuning in for the series. But yeah, it's going to be a fantastic week of games. You do not want to miss any of it.
Keep an eye out on the socials at Battle for Scott on Twitter and at Battle for Scotland on Instagram, where the results and the schedules will be going out. So keep an eye on those to stay in line and make sure you're able to set some time aside to watch the best of Scottish University esports as we have here, as we have only just begun here at the Battle for Scotland Finals Week. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching. Thank you for following these teams, and we hope to see you for the rest of the week and for plenty more BFS to come. Remember, guys, this is just the beginning, and we will see you all very soon.
Cause I don't give a fuck what you say. Yeah, I'ma do shit my way. So you can go kick rocks, I'ma stack bricks up, build what I want to make. Cause I don't give a fuck what you say. Yeah, I'ma do shit my way. So you can go kick rocks, I'ma stack bricks up, build what I want to make. Yeah, I'ma do it my way.
Coming out with a statement. You really changed, man. All your music and arrangement. You don't know shit. Shut your mouth. You can save it. I'm the same dude that got his come up from the basement. 100 songs, 100 weeks, didn't change it. Experiments, development, intelligence, and patience. I'll do it all again, cause I never feel complacent. Let's keep the good vibes. Positivity's contagious. I'm never looking back, cause I made a life that's passionate. A college graduate suppressing all his talents, yeah. He found a way to go and change, become an advocate. For taking control of your life, go out and battle. And you think you have a dream, then act on it. Get after it, get out your head and fucking capture it. You got one life to master it. Don't give up on your future. We all start losers. We're all late bloomers, gotta start them through the sewer.
What you say? Yeah, I'ma do shit my way. So you can go kick rocks, I'ma stack bricks up, build what I want to make. Cause I don't give a fuck what you say. Yeah, I'ma do shit my way. So you can go kick rocks, I'ma stack bricks up, build